Hey, tonight you're not in your bed. You're wedged between two strangers on a stone bench that hasn't seen a cushion since Nero's reign. The sun is beating down, and your tunic is sticking to places you'd rather not mention. You're at the Roman Colosseum. Front row, well, not really. You're far enough to avoid blood, but close enough to hear it hit the sand. You reach into your pouch for roasted chickpeas. Crunchy, warm. Somewhere behind you, someone's selling vinegar-soaked celery. Someone else just shouted, "More lions." No one flinches when the condemned are marched out. Midday executions are the warm-up act. You think you're just watching. But you're not. The crowd decides who lives, who gets torn apart, who gets another round. And the strangest part, you're enjoying it. Not all of it, but enough. If you enjoy these strange little windows into the past, take a moment to subscribe to the Sleep with History channel. Leave us a comment and let us know what hedonistic period of history you would like to hear more about. It means more than you know. So dim the lights. Take a deep breath. We're going back to a time when entertainment meant blood beasts and borrowed morality. You're not safe. You're entertained. And this is just the opening act. You shuffle through the crowd, feet sliding over stone steps, worn smooth by thousands before you. The air smells like sweat garum and animal fur. You're lucky it's not a festival day, so the place isn't packed to the gods. You find your spot a narrow wedge on a hot marble bench. No backrest, no shade, just sun on skin and someone else's knee pressed against yours. You're not in the nosebleeds. Those are for women and slaves. You're in the middle section, respectable, if not luxurious. Below the arena lies open like a giant waiting mouth. The sand is pale now, freshly raked. It won't stay that way for long. All around you, people murmur. They place bets. They scan the entrances. Your neighbor unwraps a fig and pops it into his mouth. Another fan leans forward, shading his eyes, hoping to glimpse the day's roster. Somewhere, above a purple-robed senator, lounges under a silk canopy. Below, in the holding cells, someone is screaming. This is your seat. It's not comfortable, but it's the best view of death in town. Your stomach grumbles, and you reach into your satchel. Roasted chickpeas, a bit stale but salty and satisfying. You chew slowly, letting the crunch distract you from the heat. Others nearby are doing the same crunching gnawing, sipping from leather flasks. Vendors weave through the aisles, shouting prices. Pickled olives, dried dates, honey cakes if you're lucky. Someone drops a boiled egg and it rolls 3 steps down before cracking under a sandal. There's no formal intermission here, no breaks. The eating happens while blood spills. It's normal, expected. Someone tears into grilled dormouse as 2 men bleed below. No one looks away. In fact, they lean closer. You sip watered wine. It's warm, metallic. Not refreshing, but enough to keep you upright. Beside you, a woman sprinkles cumin on her lentils. She offers you a bite. You decline. You didn't come here for food, but you eat anyway. It's hard to be horrified on an empty stomach. You'd like to think this is just sport, a tradition, bread and circuses, but part of you knows it's more than that. The man beside you crosses himself, though that's not Roman. It's habit, probably. Old superstitions die slowly, even in the capital. You glance up at the emperor's box. If he raises his thumb, someone might live. If not, they won't. People pray here, not loudly, but quietly, under their breath, into their sleeves. Not to gods of mercy, but to Fortuna, to victory, to vengeance. You were told gladiators were honored, that they chose this life. But you heard rumors about forced combatants, about men sold into the arena for a missed payment or political slight. Still, when the gate opens and the crowd stands, you stand too. Not because you want to, but because everyone does. Is it justice, entertainment, religion? Maybe it's all three. Maybe it doesn't matter. The drums begin, slow, then faster. A low rumble moves through the crowd like thunder on the floorboards. The first act is simple animal hunts. You hear the roar before you see them, lions released from hidden trapdoors, their manes matted with heat. The hunters step out too, net throwers, spearmen, lightly armored. You feel your heartbeat change. Not from excitement, something else. The animals seem confused, angry, not wild, not tame, just wrong. out of place. The crowd cheers when the first spear lands. You look because not looking would be stranger. Blood spatters, a lion collapses, another lunges, a man screams. He doesn't get up. You're not sure who was the entertainment there. But then, the arena is raked again. Sand thrown to soak up the dark patches. Another crew enters. The main event is close. You know this because the Emperor hasn't left, because the drums are back, because the sweat is pooling at your back. Someone offers you a second cup of wine. You drink it. You know what's next. Execution, then the duels. And this is only the morning. You don't hear the crowd first. You feel it. A low murmur, like wind through dry wheat, swells beneath your ribs. Then sharp cracks of wood and metal. A creaking noise. And that's when you realize the gates are opening. You lean forward, slightly careful not to bump the knee of the man beside you. The sun is harsh now. No clouds, no breeze. Just sweat trickling down your back, and the distant sound of something scraping. A slave appears at the arena's edge, small, almost invisible at this distance. He's pulling at something heavy, ropes attached to a great wooden winch. The crowd shifts, hundreds of bodies leaning forward as one. There's a click. Then the gate moves. It groans a low, mechanical wail. You expect it to open quickly. It doesn't. It drags slow and heavy, as if the Colosseum itself resists what's about to happen. The noise is louder now, wood grinding against stone chains, rattling sand, crunching beneath unseen feet. From where you sit, all you can see is shadow, deep black shadow behind the gate. For a moment, nothing comes out. Nothing moves. The light doesn't reach that far inside. Then you see eyes. At first, just a glint, then another, and then movement, slow, deliberate. The thing that emerges doesn't look human. It's wrapped in cloth, thin, gray-soaked. You think it might be a prisoner, or maybe an actor. Its arms hang loose, as if the joints no longer work. Every step kicks up sand, and the shadow behind it seems to grow. The crowd begins to cheer, not all at once, but in pulses. A laugh here, a shout there. Someone near you says, "They're starting early today." Another man replies, "Must be a thief, or a deserter. Look at his legs." You don't speak, you just watch. The figure stumbles forward into full light, and now you see it is a man, young, covered in dirt and bruises. One arm is bent the wrong way, his feet are bare, one ankle is swollen purple and raw. The crowd cheers louder. He looks up, not at the Emperor's box. Not at the guards. He looks up into the crowd, blinking, searching. For someone, no one calls out to him. His mouth opens like he might say something. A plea. A prayer. But then the gate slams shut behind him. The sound is sharp final. It echoes across the stone like a warning. The man flinches. You do too. A second gate begins to open across the arena. This one is quicker, more precise. It swings wide on oiled hinges. From it comes a different sound, snorting claws. On stone, something growling low and guttural. The crowd rises to its feet. You don't. Your hand is on your knee. Your nails are digging into your own skin. You're not sure why. The sand between them, the man and the second gate, shimmers in the heat. No weapons, no shield. Just air. Just space. Just enough distance for fear to stretch. And then it begins. The creature, whatever it is, bursts into the arena. It's fast, too fast. You can't even name it before it's already halfway across the sand. The man runs, not far. He slips on the edge of a shadow. He falls. You hear someone laugh. The next sound is quieter. Not silence, not exactly, but thinner. The kind of hush that drops in right before something ends. You don't know how long it lasts. Time moves differently now. You shift your weight. The bench beneath you is slick. The air is still hot. The man is gone. So is the creature. The sand is being raked again, neatly, quickly, as if nothing happened. And just like that, the crowd settles. Someone offers a sip of wine to their friend. Someone else lights a cone of incense. You think you smell cinnamon mixed with iron. You look down at your hands. They're shaking. You're not sure why. After all, this was just the beginning. You hear the laughter before you see the reason. It ripples across the crowd in a strange, uneven wave. Not loud, not jubilant, just confused amusement. Some chuckles, a few gasps. You squint against the sun, shielding your eyes. Something's coming through the side gate, but it's small, too small. You expect another criminal, another fighter, another beast, but it's a boy. A child. He's maybe 13, maybe less. His tunic is torn at the shoulder and too big for him. His hair is matted, sticking to his forehead in dark clumps. There's a bruise across his cheek, the shape of a palm. And in his hands, nothing. No sword, no shield. Just fists clenched tight, shaking at his sides. He's barefoot. You notice this first. The sand here isn't soft. It's coarse, gritty, flecked with bone chips and broken wood. He walks across it like it hurts, slowly, hesitantly. The way you'd walk barefoot across a floor you know has glass. Someone near you scoffs. Is this the pre-show? Another jeers. A woman behind you giggles. Maybe he's an actor. Maybe it's a joke. But no one on the arena floor is laughing. Not the guards who flank him, hard-faced, bored. Not the officials who whisper near the emperor's platform. And certainly not the boy. He keeps walking. He stops in the center, blinking up at the tiers of faces looking down. He shields his eyes just like you did. You wonder if he's trying to find someone. A father. A brother. Someone who might pull him out, say, "It's over," say, "It's a mistake." But no one moves. The music starts again. Not drums this time. Flutes. A high, eerie tune, almost playful. Like something from a street festival. A soldier steps forward and drops something into the sand, a small dagger, chipped and worn. The blade barely catches the light. The boy doesn't reach for it, not at first. You watch him stare at the weapon, like it's a snake. Then slowly he kneels, picks it up, holds it in both hands like he's unsure which end to use. Another gate opens. It's quiet, barely a creak. From within, a shape moves. It's another boy. Older, maybe 15 or 16. Stockier, wearing light leather armor. He holds a gladius in one hand, a net in the other. His face is calm, too calm. They look at each other. No one explains anything. No signal is given. The flutes stop. Then, like someone snapped a finger, it begins. The older boy lunges forward with the net. The younger one stumbles back, instinct more than skill. He swings wildly. The dagger doesn't hit anything. It isn't meant to. The older boy swipes again. The net catches briefly on the other's tunic, then slips free. Dust rises. You realize you're leaning forward again. And then it happens. The smaller boy trips. He lands hard, his arm twisting under him. The dagger flies from his grip, landing several feet away. He gasps. The sound doesn't carry. You only see his mouth open. The crowd makes a noise, something between disappointment and delight. You hear someone say, "Well, that's it." But the older boy doesn't finish it. Not yet. He stands over the other boy, blade raised, paused, waiting. For what? A command. Approval. Mercy. None comes. The emperor doesn't move. The crowd starts to chant something. You don't join in. You just watch. Your fingers are tight around the edge of the bench. Then the older boy lowers the sword, not to strike, but to offer the hilt. The arena falls silent. The younger one looks up, confused, hopeful. He reaches. And then a whistle pierces the air. One of the guards steps forward, raises a red cloth high. A second later, an archer fires from the shadows of the archway. The younger boy's body jerks. He slumps forward. The older one doesn't move, just kneels there, still holding the sword, still staring. It's over, not with glory, not with choice, just done. The sand turns darker under the boy's chest. A servant comes out with a rake. The crowd begins to chatter again. Someone laughs. Maybe next time he'll grab the sword faster, someone jokes. Another answers, he shouldn't have dropped it at all. You don't speak. You barely breathe. The blood is still wet. The flute tune starts again. You close your eyes, but it's no darker than what you've just seen. The gates open again. You're expecting motion, dust, flying claws, scratching a creature, bursting out like a firework. But this time, there's hesitation. Something is different. At first, the gate doesn't open all the way. Just a gap, like someone changed their mind halfway through. The crowd leans forward again. You're part of them now. You do the same without thinking. Then, from the shadows, it appears. A leopard. Its spots are pale gold and ink black, its ribs visible even from where you sit. It steps cautiously into the light, paw by paw. Not charging, not pacing, just walking, head low, eyes flicking back toward the darkness it came from. You realize it's trembling. The crowd doesn't know how to react. There's no cheering, no jeering, just a strange prickling stillness. You hear someone near you whisper, "It's sick." Someone else, "No, just scared." Another, "Then it's useless." The handlers behind the gate hiss and wave spears. One slaps a wooden paddle against the wall. The leopard flinches but doesn't move forward. It crouches instead, low, like a shadow, folding into itself. A man steps into the arena. He's wearing the garb of a venator, a beast hunter. Tall, armored, lightly confident. His trident gleams in the sunlight. His net drags behind him, raising little curls of dust. He raises his arms and salutes the emperor. The crowd applauds politely. Then he turns to the animal, but the animal doesn't turn to him. Its gaze stays locked on the handlers, on the dark doorway, on escape. The venator calls out a sharp whistle between his teeth. The leopard doesn't react. He circles cautious, giving the creature space to bolt, to run, to do anything. Still nothing. You realize you're holding your breath. A child near you says, "Why isn't it doing anything?" Her mother hushes her, but the question lingers. In the arena, in the stands, in your chest, the beast is broken. It isn't angry, it isn't dangerous, it's just afraid. The venator tries again, this time tossing a rope net toward the animal. It lands with a soft puff of dust. The leopard, startled, steps back 2 paces, then crouches again. Not to pounce, but to hide. Someone boos. It starts slowly, 1 or 2 voices, then dozens, then hundreds. People shift in their seats. Some throw olive pits. One man throws his wine cup. It doesn't reach the arena, but it shatters near your feet. The leopard doesn't move. Not when the boos rise. Not when a drumbeat starts slow and angry. Not even when 2 handlers step out with whips. You expect it to fight then. It doesn't. It curls tighter. The venator lowers his trident. He looks up at the emperor. A signal, a shrug, a question without words. The emperor doesn't answer. So a third man enters, a butcher in everything but name. He walks calmly to the animal, draws a short blade from his belt, and without ceremony, sinks it into the leopard's side. It doesn't roar. It doesn't leap. It just jerks. Then lies still. You don't hear the crowd anymore. Just the breeze through the stones. A faint cough from somewhere behind you. The sound of blood dripping onto sand. The drumbeat stops. The body is dragged off by chains tied to its paws. The marks it leaves aren't red. They're darker, almost black. They soak into the sand and vanish. Someone near you mutters, "What a waste." Another replies, "Next one, better fight." You look down at your hands. They're still, colder now. Your fingers curl slightly, as if grasping something you can't see. There is no applause, no cheers, just a reset. The gate closes. The sand is raked. The show will go on. It always does. The day is heating up. Shadows shrink against the stone, and the marble under you feels like a stove. You shift, trying to find a patch of tunic between your skin and the burning bench. In the arena, the next act is being prepared. A condemned man is marched in. He walks with a limp. There's something tied to his back, maybe weights, maybe just cruelty. A sign hangs around his neck, scrawled with letters you can't read from this distance. But it doesn't matter. The crowd laughs anyway. They always do. He's followed by a costume performer, mocking him, dancing in circles, dressed as a dog. The farce is obvious. It's meant to humiliate before the real punishment begins. But then something strange happens. Someone stands up. It's a woman, a Roman woman. Well-dressed hair pinned high in coils of gold. Not from the top rows, not from the slave seats. She stands from the second tier, where the wealthy sit, where women are usually quiet. And she's not quiet. She shouts something. You don't catch the words, but the tone is clear, sharp, disapproving. Her hand points at the arena, at the guards, at the emperor's box. A ripple moves through the crowd. Heads turn. People murmur. It's not often someone interrupts, and never a woman. She says something else louder this time. You hear the words, he's just a debtor. And then, this isn't justice, it's murder. The guards hesitate. The performer freezes still in mid-prance. The condemned man stares at her like she's a vision. Unreal, fragile, already gone. For a breath, it's quiet. And then the laughter returns. Not from everyone, just a few men nearby. Someone whistles. Someone throws a fig at her feet. Another voice shouts, "Sit down, Vestal." She doesn't. You can see her shaking now, her fists, clenched mouth still open. But no more words come. A guard from the lower tier begins to climb toward her. His armor clinks with each step. Someone jeers, "Will you fight next, lady?" The people near her edge away, not wanting to be mistaken for allies. You can feel the change in the air, the crowd turning, hunger shifting. The emperor's aide stands, says nothing, just nods once. The guard reaches the woman. He doesn't strike her, he doesn't need to. He grabs her wrist, pulls her down, forces her to sit. She doesn't scream. She just shakes her head. The show continues. The performer resumes his dance, slightly offbeat now. The condemned man is released. The dogs will be next. They always are. But your eyes keep drifting back to her. She stays seated, back straight, hands in her lap. But her eyes no longer watch the arena. She stares forward, past it, into something only she sees. Around you the crowd moves on. They laugh again, bet again, cheer again. As if she never stood, as if her voice was never real. But you remember it. You will remember it. And you wonder, will anyone ever stand again? The sand is red again. You don't know when it changed. You weren't watching closely. Not really. Your eyes had drifted to the edge of the arena where a boy was picking up splinters from a broken spear. You watched him for a long time. It felt safer. But now the blood is there, fresh, glinting in the heat. And something inside you changes. You feel it first in your stomach, a twist not of nausea, but something stranger. It's not disgust, not horror. It's excitement. You sit still, but your fingers curl into your knee. Your foot taps once, quiet, reflexive. Your chest feels light. Breath moves faster. And then it hits you. You're enjoying this. Not all of it. Not the cruelty, not the screams. But something. The spectacle. The rhythm. The unspoken thrill of watching something happen that no one can stop. The kind of moment where everyone is leaning forward at once. Where you are a part of something bigger, louder, older than yourself. You tell yourself you're only reacting to the noise, the drums, the roars, the heat. But you know better. The man in the arena is wounded. He clutches, his side breath ragged. His opponent circles, unsure whether to press forward or stall for drama. The crowd chants something. You don't understand the words, but the cadence pulls at you. Your lips move with them. Your heartbeat rises, and still you watch. You try to look away to the sky, to the canopy above the emperor's seat, to the birds overhead, but even the birds are circling. Even they are drawn in. Your hands sweat, not from the sun. You lean forward again. This time you know why. You want to see what happens. You want to see who wins. You want to see how it ends. The fighter moves in. A final strike. The wounded man falls hard, limbs twisted, face frozen. In that ugly way death tends to leave things. His mouth is still open. You can see his teeth. The victor raises his blade. And you you feel it again. Not happiness, not pride, but a rush. Like running downhill too fast, like standing at the edge of a cliff. And for the first time, you realize the games aren't just about punishment or justice or tradition. They're about you. Your appetite, your fear, your hunger to see what others cannot bear. You feel sick. And yet, you don't look away. It hits you before you see it. Not the sound, not the sight. The smell. You thought you were getting used to it. The sour sweat of bodies, the dust, the fried lentil cakes being passed down the rows, the distant tang of old wine. But this is different. Thicker, metallic, warm. It smells like rust left in the sun. You don't know when the blood reached this far. One moment, the sand was just sand. The next, it's wet, dark, almost black in patches. The rakers couldn't keep up this time. There was too much. A man fell. That much you know. You didn't catch the blow that did it. You were blinking, tired, maybe bored. And then the crowd shouted all at once. When your eyes opened, he was already on the ground convulsing. The other fighter had stepped away almost reverently, like he didn't want to disturb the moment of death. That's when the scent arrived. Carried on heat, on wind, on history. You smell it in your nose first, then somehow in your mouth, like you bit into iron, like you licked the inside of a coin purse. Someone beside you says fresh. Another laughs and calls it the perfume of Rome. You don't laugh. Your stomach tightens. You look down at your hands. You want to wipe them though you haven't touched anything. You rub your palms against your tunic. It doesn't help. Down below, the fighter raises his weapon. The crowd cheers, and the wind shifts. More of it, more blood in the air. The man on the ground twitches once more, then stops. The officials nod. Slaves hurry forward with ropes, hooks, rakes. The scene becomes mechanical, efficient, too efficient. One of the rakers slips and falls. When he gets up, he's covered in it, from knee to chest, a streak on his face. He doesn't react, just keeps working. You don't know how they do it, how anyone does. The scent wraps around you now, sticks to your throat. You swallow, and it's still there. You close your eyes, thinking maybe it'll pass. But it stays, even when the sand is clean again. Even when the drums start up, and the next gate begins to creak. Even when someone nearby offers you a piece of dried fruit, and you try to smile. The taste of iron doesn't leave. Not that day. Maybe not ever. The announcer's voice rises clear, theatrical, practiced. He names the next event. You don't understand every word, but you recognize the tone, ceremonial, smug, proud. The way priests chant, the way generals speak before battles, they already know they'll win. The crowd shifts with interest. This isn't a normal duel. It's something called a myth enactment. You've heard of them, seen one before maybe. A dramatization of old stories, heroes and gods, monsters and sacrifice. All for show, all for spectacle. Except it's not just show. You see the stagehands enter first, dressed in ridiculous versions of mythic robes, oversized masks, bright feathers. They scatter colored sand across the arena floor, forming shapes and symbols you don't recognize. The crowd claps lightly. Then come the actors. You recognize one of them. You saw him earlier, shackled, thin eyes unfocused. A prisoner, not a performer. But now he's in costume barely sewn together. He plays Prometheus. You can tell from the fake liver painted on his side. You swallow. This won't be symbolic. The announcer proclaims the scene, the punishment of a god who gave fire to man. The eagle will come, the liver will be eaten, and the god, this man, will scream. People around you are smiling, whispering. One man says this version's supposed to be better than last week. Another replies, they trained the bird longer. Then the cage is brought out, large, wooden, covered in cloth. When they pull the cloth away, the eagle flaps wildly, tethered by leather loops, its eyes wild and golden. It's not tame, it's barely controlled, but it knows hunger. The god is strapped to a fake rock. He doesn't resist. You wonder if he's already dead inside. The bird is released. At first, it just hops, flaps, tilts its head. Then it strikes. The man jerks against the ropes, screams. Not theatrical screams, not rehearsed, real, high, panicked. The kind you hear in accidents, in nightmares. The crowd leans in. The eagle pecks again. And again. You can't look away. The handlers stand nearby, ready to pull the bird back if it damaged the scene too quickly. But they wait. They let it go longer this time. The audience likes blood. The man is crying now. Or laughing. It's hard to tell. Maybe both. His body twitches, but the ropes hold firm. You hear someone near you munching on seeds. Another uncorks wine. And then it ends. Not because mercy is given, but because the eagle is full. It loses interest, flaps once, hops away. The man doesn't move. Someone calls it divine punishment. Another says he died like a god. The crowd claps politely. The handlers drag the body away. The feathers remain. Someone steps into the arena and begins sweeping away the colored sand, smearing it into the blood. The next myth is already being prepared. You sit back dazed, and you realize even the gods suffer in Rome. Flat, pale, undisturbed. But then you notice something strange in area in the center, just slightly darker than the rest. Not blood, not shadow, just different. You wouldn't have seen it if you weren't already staring. A performer enters the arena. He's dressed like mercury-winged, helmet, short tunic, silver sandals. The crowd cheers lazily. Another interlude, you think. A moment of comic relief between executions. He prances exaggerated and ridiculous, tossing fake scrolls to the audience. You almost laugh, until you hear the grinding. At first, it sounds like wind in the stone, then deeper, rhythmic, deliberate. You look back at that patch of sand. It's moving. Barely, just a shift, a quiver. Then, with a sudden pop, a square of the arena floor drops like a trapdoor swallowed into the earth. The sand collapses in a neat frame. The performer freezes. For a moment, there's no reaction. No music, no laughter. Just that sunken hole. Then the screams begin. Not from the performer, from inside the pit. Hands emerge, first bloodied, frantic grasping. A face next, wide-eyed mouth stretched open, but no words, just gasping, clawing, scrabbling for purchase on the edge. The crowd erupts. Some cheer, others recoil. The man in the pit, young, terrified, half-naked, pulls himself halfway up. You see whip marks across his back, dried blood on his thigh. He's not part of the show. He was stored there, a living prop. The trapdoor was timed, and now the world is watching him struggle out of it. The performer steps back, face twisted in real confusion. This wasn't in his act. The officials along the arena wall glance at each other. One shrugs, another makes a quick motion. Carry on. And just like that, the audience shifts again from surprise to amusement. They chant, clap. Someone near you says he's part of it. It's a twist, but it's not. You know it. You can feel it. This wasn't planned. The man pulls himself fully onto the sand. He collapses, chest heaving. Then slowly, he begins to crawl. The crowd roars with laughter. A beast is released. Not a lion this time. A boar, large, foaming at the mouth. Its hooves dig into the sand as it charges. The man tries to stand. Fails. The performer runs. The boar doesn't care. It goes straight for the man. What happens next is too fast to follow. A blur of movement, a scream, a wet cracking sound. The boar spins, blood on its snout. The man doesn't move. The sand around him darkens. The trapdoor slowly rises again, seamless, swallowing the whole as if it was never there. The performer resumes his act. He tosses another scroll. You forget to catch it. There comes a moment you don't expect. A pause. Not in the program. Those never stop. But in the crowd. A stillness, brief and absolute. It happens after a particularly long duel. Both men lie motionless on the sand. One is dead. The other might be. Or maybe he's pretending. Either way, the fight is over, and no one has entered yet to clear the bodies. The drums have stopped. The vendors are gone for now. The emperor isn't waving, isn't signaling. Just silence. Tens of thousands of people sitting in tiered stone rings, all waiting. No clapping, no cheering. Even the birds above seem to hold their wings still. You can hear yourself breathe. You can hear someone coughing far to your right. Somewhere in the upper tiers, a baby starts to cry, then is quickly hushed. And that's it. No one speaks. Even the heat presses softer now, as if the sun itself is watching. The arena is quiet, not respectful, not reverent, just exhausted. As if the blood has saturated not just the sand, but the air, the walls, the people. As if the Colosseum itself is catching its breath. You glance around and see the faces near you, normally animated, shouting, laughing, now blank, slack-jawed, lost in private thoughts, or maybe no thoughts at all. You shift slightly. The bench creaks. The noise feels loud, too loud. You freeze again. Down below, the bodies haven't been moved. One of the fallen is curled like a child. The other lies face up, his eyes wide open, staring at the sun. No one has closed them. No one will. You feel something cold settle into your chest. A knowing. This isn't just entertainment. This is a mechanism, a machine. It doesn't stop because it's cruel. It stops because it must reload. Reset. Refill the pit before it swallows more. Then, without warning, the silence ends. A sharp crack, a whip, the sound echoes. The crowd jerks awake like dreamers snapping out of sleep. Vendors return. Music begins again, flutes cheerful and shrill. And two new gates open. One for the crew with rakes and hooks, the other for whatever comes next. And just like that, the stillness is gone, swallowed by movement. You barely noticed you were holding your breath. Now you let it go. And wish you hadn't, because you know what comes after quiet in a place like this. The next duel ends quickly. A single slash, a clean fall. The crowd barely reacts. It was too fast to enjoy. The victor bows, breathless body gleaming with sweat. And that's when it happens. Not on the sand, but above it. From the shaded tiers near the emperor's box, a woman rises. Dressed in silks, rings on every finger, she holds out a small silver bowl. A slave steps forward, climbs down a few steps, and approaches the gladiator. You watch, puzzled. The slave speaks to him, briefly. The gladiator nods, still panting, still dripping. Then he leans forward. The slave raises a fine cloth and dabs his neck, his chest, under his arms, behind his knees, every drop of sweat gathered with care, then wrung into the silver bowl. The crowd doesn't cheer. But they watch. The woman receives the bowl with both hands as if it were holy. She closes her eyes, breathes in the scent, smiles faintly. Then disappears into the shaded archways of the elite rows. You blink. Surely you imagined it, but you didn't. Because minutes later, it happens again. Different woman, different gladiator, same ritual. This time the cloth is finer dyed deep blue, embroidered with gold. The sweat is caught delicately, reverently. Not a drop wasted. Someone behind you mutters, "For love potions." Another replies, "For perfume." A third adds, "It's not sweat, it's power." You feel your skin crawl. Down on the arena floor, the next pair of fighters prepares to enter, but your attention stays above. You see more slaves carrying bowls, more cloths, more whispered requests. This isn't part of the show. This is something else. An unspoken market, a sacred transaction. You wonder what happens to those bowls after. Are they placed on altars, mixed into oils, poured into wine? Do people wear that sweat to seduce senators? To ensure fertility? To cure headaches? Or do they wear it just to feel close to violence? The crowd around you doesn't seem disturbed. They've seen it before. They understand the ritual. You're the outsider here, still clinging to the idea that what happens on the sand is the worst of it. But it isn't. Because up here in the shadows, people buy pieces of death. Bottle it, savor it, and call it divine. You start to notice the pattern. Not in the fights, not in the drama, in the machinery behind it all. At first, you didn't see them. The ones who make this place run. They move like shadows, never part of the show, never acknowledged by the announcers, but they're everywhere. You see a man tall, expressionless, speaking quietly to two guards at the edge of the arena. He doesn't wear armor. He carries a wooden tablet and a thin, wax stylus. He points to the next gate. The guards nod. They move. 5 minutes later, a prisoner is dragged out. You realize something chilling. That man chooses the order. Who comes next? Who dies in what sequence? He does it like he's sorting grain. Later, you see another official dressed in black with a scar across his scalp, checking a list of names while a slave recites numbers. Probabilities, odds, weapon matches. The man nods, crosses off a line. The next duel begins moments later. None of them flinch when blood hits the wall. None of them look away when someone begs. It's all a system. Efficient, clean, cold. You see the water boys scrubbing shields, sharpening swords. They don't talk. They don't smile. One of them slips on a patch of old blood. No one helps him. He gets up, keeps working. You glance up at the Emperor's box. He's laughing at something. A joke, maybe. Or someone's death. Then your eyes drift lower behind the arena walls. You can just make out the tops of wooden carts, covered with tarps, moved in and out at regular intervals. When one leaves, another comes in. Bodies. You're sure of it. Not dramatic, not ceremonial, just logistics. Someone's keeping count. And for the first time, it hits you, this is more than a show. More than tradition. It's an operation, as polished as a war machine, as predictable as taxes. The performers bleed. The audience cheers. But the men in the shadows, they profit. They plan. They measure suffering by the minute. Down to the last scream, you glance around the crowd and notice the children. Not the silent, solemn faces of adults, not the hardened looks of soldiers or merchants, but small, eager faces pressed against the edges of the benches, wide-eyed and smiling. Their mouths are open in laughter, their hands clapping without restraint. They cheer when the beasts are released, squealing as lions stalk the sand. They yell when gladiators clash, mimicking the motions with tiny fists in the air. You catch a glimpse of a boy no older than 7, holding a wooden sword, waving it wildly. His mother tries to shush him, but he only giggles louder. They don't understand death yet, not fully. To them, the Colosseum is a playground, a place of wonder and excitement. You wonder how they will remember this. Will they grow up hardened or haunted? The screams blend with their laughter, creating a dissonant symphony that echoes off the stone walls. A girl next to you clutches a cloth doll stained faintly with dirt and something darker. She doesn't look away when a man falls in the arena. Instead, she leans closer, fascinated. You try to imagine what this will do to their dreams, what nightmares may lurk behind those innocent eyes. But for now, they cheer. They celebrate. They live in a world where pain is entertainment and innocence is fleeting, and you feel a cold weight settle in your chest. Because you know this will not last. As the crowd roars, your eyes catch a face among the mass, a man seated several rows away, cloaked in shadow despite the bright sun. He's older than most here. His skin is weathered, lined with scars that speak of battles you can only imagine. His eyes, sharp and steady, fix on the arena with an intensity that unsettles you. You feel his gaze shift toward you, as if piercing through the layers of flesh and stone. You hold his stare. There's something haunting in those eyes, a mixture of sorrow and resignation, pride and pain. He's not cheering. He's not jeering. He's just watching. You wonder who he is, a veteran gladiator, a lost senator, a father mourning a son. The fight below distracts others, but for you, the world narrows to that single gaze. You sense a story, untold heavy reel. A story you can't hear, but feel deep in your bones. And in that moment, the noise fades. You are alone with him, and the arena feels emptier than ever. The crowd buzzes with a mix of anticipation and tension. Whispers ripple through the tiers as a figure steps into the arena, a man whose name sends chills through even the bravest spectators. He's infamous. A killer by trade, or so the stories say. Not just any murderer, but one known for a cold-blooded strike that haunted Rome's streets for months. His face has appeared in countless rumors painted as both villain and anti-hero. Yet here he is, striding into the arena, unshackled and unafraid. The emperor watches intently from his box fingers, tapping rhythmically on the armrest. The crowd holds its breath. Suddenly, a chant begins, a strange, hopeful rhythm that grows louder. Mercy, mercy! Voices from the lower tiers, joined by more from above. It's a plea, an unexpected gesture in a place where death is currency. The man pauses, glancing around. His eyes gleam with something unreadable: defiance, relief, pride. He lifts his hand and salutes the crowd. The emperor raises his thumb. A collective gasp. The crowd erupts, some cheering, others booing. The man bows deeply. His life spared, not by skill or strength, but by a performance, a dance, a mock fight, a show of repentance crafted to captivate the audience. You watch as he moves, precise, graceful, almost theatrical. Some say he dances better than he kills, and tonight that performance buys him breath. The arena vibrates with conflicted energy, admiration, tangled with unease. You wonder how many more will earn mercy through art rather than valor. How many more lives are gambled on spectacle rather than justice? The man turns and walks to the gate, a shadow among the roars. The show goes on, but the question lingers: who truly wins? The clash of steel rings out sharply, echoing off the stone walls like thunder. Two gladiators face each other, sweat-dripping muscles, taut eyes, locked. One is younger, nervous, but determined. The other, a veteran, scarred and steady, stands poised. The crowd watches, breath held. Suddenly, the veteran lowers his sword. He steps back. Silence ripples through the arena. He does not attack. He does not defend. He refuses. Gasps rise. Murmurs spread. Some shout, "Fight, fight." Others whisper, "Shame, coward." The younger gladiator looks confused, uncertain. The veteran's face is unreadable. A guard signals to the emperor's box. The crowd's anger grows, but the veteran holds firm. He turns away, tossing his sword to the sand. The younger one hesitates, then follows. The crowd erupts, boos, curses, cries of betrayal. The emperor frowns. The officials move swiftly, dragging the two men apart. They are punished, not with death, but with exile from the arena. As they are led away, the veteran glances back once. His eyes meet yours. In them, a silent plea, a question. Why must survival be measured in blood? As the crowd roars fade, your gaze drifts from the arena to the edges, to the men who arrive silently once the spectacle is over. They are the cleaners. No cheers greet them. No applause, just quiet necessity. They move methodically, dragging bodies, gathering discarded weapons, raking the bloodied sand smooth again. One man slips on a slick patch of dark fluid and falls hard. Groaning, he pushes himself up, hands stained red. He says nothing. Another carries a broken shield, battered and scratched beyond recognition. Their faces are stoic, unreadable. You watch as they work with brutal efficiency. The weight of death in every movement. Sometimes one pauses, wiping sweat and grime from his brow, his eyes distant and hollow. You imagine the stories they carry, how many battles they have cleaned up. How many lives ended beneath their hands? They are the invisible army of the arena. Unsung, unseen. Yet essential. You feel a chill. Because you realize without them, the Colosseum would collapse in chaos. And without them, the blood would never be forgotten. The sky, clear and relentless all day, suddenly darkens. Clouds gather quickly, thick and heavy, blotting out the sun. A low rumble of thunder echoes over the Colosseum. You feel the first drops, cool, unexpected landing on your skin. The crowd stirs nervously. Some cheer, others curse the interruption. You pull your tunic tighter, eyes fixed on the arena. The sand, already stained dark, begins to absorb the rain. Droplets mix with blood, turning the ground into a slick, muddy mess. The rakers work faster, dragging heavy brooms, trying to keep the floor clear. But it's useless. The rain pours harder. The roar of thunder grows louder, drowning out the cries of the crowd. People start to pack up, pulling cloaks and scarves over their heads. Some rush toward the exits, slipping on wet steps. Others stay fascinated by the sudden chaos. You watch as fighters in the arena struggle to maintain footing. Their movements slow, clumsy. The boar released earlier snorts, pawing at the mud, clearly agitated. The rain washes over faces, mixing with sweat and blood. You taste the wetness in the air, sharp and cold. Lightning flashes illuminating the arena in stark white. For a moment, everything feels surreal. The violence, the bloodshed, the spectacle, all softened by the downpour. And yet, underneath, something primal stirs. The rain does not cleanse. It exposes. The moment you think you've seen every shade of crimson, someone turns it into art. A troupe of painters enters the arena. No masks, no costumes, simple tunic sleeves rolled up. Each carries a wooden palette and thick brushes. The crowd quiets, curious. This isn't part of the next execution or beast hunt. It feels absurd. You lean forward. A child beside you tugs your sleeve. Me oiho vigitha. The mother shrugs. Chung biet. Chak tromoy. In the center of the sand, two assistants wheel in a low platform. On it lies the body of a man who fell earlier. His life ended in a whirlwind of net and trident. He's already pale, his skin slack. But that doesn't stop the painters. One kneels at his feet, dips a brush into a shallow bowl of dark pigment. You think it's ink until you realize the bowl is filled with something thicker, richer, fresh, real. Blood. Not symbolic, not theatrical. They're using it as paint. A hush falls. You feel your pulse in your throat. A painter sweeps a long stroke across a stretched canvas, mixing the fresh blood with ochre and white chalk. The image begins to form, a roaring lion, its mane streaked perfectly in that dark, red mouth open in a silent scream. Each brushstroke is deliberate, almost gentle, the same way you'd stroke fine marble. Another painter works on the body itself, tracing patterns on the man's chest and arms. Spirals, runes, geometric shapes that look ancient. You realize they're copying tattoo designs, once reserved for warriors and royalty. And here, on a corpse, they're worshipping violence itself. The crowd murmurs. Some lean in enthralled. Others recoil. A woman 2 rows down covers her child's eyes. But most watch. You watch. The painters step back. They exchange nods. One uncorks a vial of oil, splashes it over the dried patterns. The colors deepen. The body gleams. It looks unnervingly alive. The senior painter raises his arms. A drumbeat begins. Not the usual funeral drum, but a slow, ritualistic pulse. A flute joins in, weaving a lament. The 2 artists step forward and lift the body carefully onto a bier. The painting on canvas is rolled up, propped like a scroll. The canvas itself drips fresh lines of blood in the heat. Then they march slow and solemn around the edge of the arena, as if presenting a living gallery to the emperor. The body is carried past you. You catch a whiff of iron and incense. It's a strange perfume of life and death mingled. At the emperor's box, the canvas is unfurled. He nods. A single clap from his hand, slow but enough. The drum stops. The painters bow. The assistants roll the body into the hypogeum trap door. The canvas is carried away by eunuchs in purple robes. Silence follows, then low applause, tentative. The crowd seems unsure how to react. Some clap, most just sit. You sit too chest tight, mind spinning. Because here in the heart of Rome's grandest spectacle, violence isn't just for sport. It's turned into art, celebrated, sanctified, immortalized. And you realize more than ever that cruelty is woven into the soul of this place. You almost missed him. He was hidden among the guards, hunched under a hood, stumbling on crutches. His body leaned sideways, one leg too short, hip collapsed from old wounds. You sense rather than see the discomfort in every shift of weight. A shrill whistle cuts through the arena noise. The guards drag the hood off him. Your chest tightens. He's a man, middle-aged, his face lined with more than age. One arm hangs useless at his side, fingers curled in a permanent fist. His right leg is bound in a leather brace. The left is bare, scarred, twisted. Blood seeps from a fresh cut at his ankle. A hush falls over the crowd. Some lean back disgusted. Others lean in intrigued. You're frozen, stomach churning. The announcer's voice booms in Felix Unlucky One. Not a gladiator's name. A label. They push him forward. The guards shove his crutches aside. He clutches them for a moment, as if he might collapse, then steels himself. He steps onto the sand barefoot, each footfall a choice, painful, deliberate. You swallow hard. The sand is scalding. His lips tremble. You want to close your eyes, but you can't look away. From the opposite gate, two burly fighters appear well-armed, armored, confident. They grin, flex their gladi. They know this is no contest. They know the crowd expects a show. The crippled man raises his chin. You hear the crack of his voice, hoarse and tired, si vis pacem. If you want peace. The crowd jeers. Someone shouts, he wants his crutches back. A woman hurls a fig. It bounces off his brace. He doesn't flinch. The first fighter orders him to drop to one knee. He does, slowly, each movement measured. He bows his head, chest, heaving an act of surrender, or perhaps a plea. The fighters in armor circle him like sharks. He lifts a hand showing he carries no weapon, no shield, nothing but courage. The lead fighter lunges, not with sword, with intent to push him over. The crippled man steps back, but his brace catches in the sand. He stumbles, arm flails, he nearly falls. A cheer erupts. He rights himself, face pale. Blood and sweat mix at his temple. He blinks, wipes it away. You can't look at him without flinching. The cruelty is too blatant. The fighters clash behind him, mocking his struggle with every thrust of sword and slash of net. It's choreographed torment, designed to humiliate as well as harm. A sword grazes his shoulder. He winces. Pain blooms like wildfire. He grits his teeth. You feel bile rise in your throat. He raises his voice again, this time a shout, not a plea. Non sum bestia, I am not a beast. The crowd hushes, stunned by his defiance. He stands tall, bracing himself on his good leg. The fighters pause, uncertain. For a heartbeat, you think something might change. But a spear is thrown. It pins his tunic to the wooden wall behind him. He yanks himself free. The cloth tears. Another spear follows, this time into his side. His body jerk pain. He falls to one knee, tries to stand, can't. Now blood pools beneath him. You taste iron on your tongue. A guard steps forward, hook in hand. He prods the man's ribs, forcing him upright in a grotesque puppet act. The crippled man's eyes dart across the crowd, searching perhaps for mercy, perhaps for familiarity. No one stands. No one reaches out. Even the children avert their eyes. The announcer calls out Vae Victis, woe to the vanquished. Then, the final blow, a net cast deliberately to tangle him. He struggles, twists, gasps. The net tightens. A second hook drags him toward the trapdoor. You feel your nails dig into your palm. Your mouth goes dry. His last glance directed at you as if you were the one who threw the fig. His gaze pleads, remember me. The trapdoor clicks. He's gone. The net flutters down. The sand closes. A roar of applause rises. You exhale. You swallow back tears and bile. You think this is Rome. And you wonder how a man can fight for his life without a weapon. You thought you'd seen every form of spectacle here, but then comes something almost beautiful. The next condemned soul is led in. A tall man, gaunt but dignified as chest, bare arms raised in resignation. No struggle, no futility of crutches or nets. He walks with a strange calm, as though stepping onto a stage rather than facing death. You lean forward. Something new is about to begin. Above you, a hush falls. The drums have paused. Even the birds circling overhead seem to hold their flight. Then, from the upper tiers, a soft sound, the rustle of silk. A handful of servants, dressed all in white, step forward carrying baskets. Their faces are solemn, expressionless. In each basket lies a mound of petals, rich scarlet, pale pink, golden yellow. Someone near you whispers a farewell gift for the worthy. Another replies, he must be of noble birth. Noble or not, you can't tear your eyes away as the man stands in the center of the arena. The emperor raises a hand, a signal. Silence. One by one, the servants begin to scatter petals. At first, a trickle here and there drifting through the sunlight. Then faster, a cascade of color raining down over the condemned man and the sand. He closes his eyes, tilts his face upward. Petals land on his shoulders, his arms, his hair. Some gather at his feet, forming a blotch of living colors on the pale sand. The fragrance is unexpected jasmine rose myrtle. Sweet, heavy, almost cloying against the metallic tang you've smelled all day. It mingles with the mud and blood still clinging to the floor. You realize the man is unarmed. No sign of a sword, no shield, no rope securing him. He's offered no fight. He's offered no plea, only this. The petals swirl around him like a storm of blossoms. The servants move as if in slow dance, circling him, arms outstretched, releasing petals in rhythmic unison. It's almost choreographed, breathless in its grace. The crowd watches, hushed. No cheers, no groans. It feels like the only moment of collective reverence you've sensed since you arrived. And then another signal from the emperor, this time a nod. The petals pause mid-air. An executioner steps forward, his blade glinting in the sunlight. He approaches the man who remains still accepting. The man doesn't flinch as the sword is lifted overhead, the crowd leaning in as though not to miss a frame. Time stretches. You hold your breath. The blade falls. A single swift arc. The man's head rolls, landing softly among the petals. For a heartbeat, the arena is silent. Then the petals resume their descent, fluttering down over the severed head, nestling in the hair around the neck. The crowd exhales as one. Some bow their heads. Some speak prayers. Others remain motionless, transfixed by the macabre beauty. You feel a trembling in your chest. You didn't expect to feel admiration. For the moment, it felt like art, like a ritual honoring bravery rather than insulting it. Yet the reality is no kinder. The man is gone, a corpse, vibrant flower petals masking the violence beneath. The servants step back, the baskets empty, save for a few crystals of sand and blood on their white robes. The incense bearers enter, trailing smoke that mingles with the fallen petals, the scent of flowers turning smoky heavy. The body is gathered by launderers, the petals swept up and thrown aside. The red dunes of petals vanish, trampled under sandals. The sand is raked, hiding the last traces of this fleeting beauty. And the show goes on. Beyond the white robes and sweet scent, the truth remains. Death here is never embellished beyond recognition. Even the most graceful ceremony is a reminder that cruelty is the empire's most honored art. You sit back, chest tight. The next act beckons a beast hunt, they say. Someone calls for leopards. You shudder. But for a moment, the cruelty was framed as beauty. And you will never forget how the fallen man was showered with petals as though death itself could be gilded. You didn't notice the change at first. The announcer's voice didn't grow louder. The drums didn't quicken. There was no fanfare, only the heavy hush that falls when something unthinkable is about to begin. You lean forward, gripping the edge of the bench. Below in the sand, a man lies bound, not strapped, but chained. His wrists are cuffed behind a low pillar, carved like a broken column. His ankles are cuffed to rings sunk into the sand. He cannot move more than a foot in either direction. He's naked from the waist up. The sunlight gleams on sweat and dust. His skin is mottled with bruises, purple, green, dark yellow, the map of pain laid out in living color. Nobody cheers, nobody mocks. There's a quiet curiosity now, like a crowd gathering around a wounded soldier to see how he bleeds. You smell vinegar used to sting wounds clean. You smell oil ready to soften leather. You smell iron and sweat and fear. A soldier steps forward, carrying a leather strap soaked in wine. He lays it across the man's bare back. The condemned flinches, muscles tensing, but he holds his ground. His eyes are fixed on the emperor's box, begging, daring, pleading all at once. The soldier whips. It snaps through the air like a crack of thunder. The man arches, head, thrown back mouth, opening in a scream you hear clear in your mind. And then, nothing. The Wan is silent. He lowers his head. You wonder if he's already unconscious, but his chest rises and falls. He's still alive. The soldier dries the strap on a cloth, then picks up a new instrument, a thin metal rod tipped with a blunt hook. He presses it to the man's ribs. You wince as the flesh ripples around it. The rod twists slowly. The man groans. Again he doesn't cry out. He doesn't beg. He just groans low and guttural like wind in a distant cave. You glance around. The crowd has grown stiller. This is no spectacle of death. It's a tableau of suffering. Each gasp, each twitch of muscle, each drip of blood paints a scene that lingers in the mind. The soldier switches tools again, now a small torch burning too hot. He holds it close to the man's skin. You feel the heat from here. The flames cast flickering shadows on the ruined column. You hear the sizzle as flesh tightens, then relaxes. The man's eyes squeeze shut. You imagine the pain, but you know imagining won't come close. You lift a hand to your mouth. You taste iron. Time stretches. The torch is moved across his ribs in deliberate arcs, kneading pain like a sculptor shaping clay. The man's breathing becomes ragged, shallow. His mouth moves as if forming words you can't hear. You wonder, is he praying, cursing, singing? A drop of blood falls onto the sand. It beads for a moment, then sinks into the grains. The soldier wipes the torch on a cloth. The cloth is already stained dark. Then another soldier appears with a wooden mallet. He brings it down on the end of the metal rod, driving it deeper, bending the hook until it tears tissue. You press your eyes shut for a breath, but you can't look away. The sounds snap, hiss, grunt echo in your head. You feel your heart pounding. Your legs tremble. You realize you have never been so aware of living. Pain is raw life, bleeding through civilization's veneer. The ordeal continues. A third soldier kneels and pours a bowl of water over the man's shoulders and chest, steam rising where flesh meets liquid. Maybe to cool him, maybe to let him feel it anew. The condemned's eyes open. They glisten wet. He looks out at the crowd. He sees you. You see your reflection in his pupils, your curiosity, your horror, your fear that you cannot look away. A fourth tool appears, pincers, long and curved. The soldier uses them to clamp a fold of skin on the man's abdomen. He waits for your gasp, but you manage only a ragged breath. The pincers close. You see the flesh grip them. He bites his lip. His jaw works, holding in a scream. The blade of a small knife appears. It slips under the flesh, gripped by pincers. A cut. The man's hand snaps toward the blade, then stops chained. A trickle of blood. The soldier pauses as if offering mercy, but only for a moment. Then he presses on, carving slowly. The man's body buckles. You feel the air shift, as if the arena itself leans in to watch. Minutes pass, or hours, you cannot tell. The sun moves, shadows stretch, dust drifts. The man remains bound, unable to collapse fully, even if he wanted to. At last, the soldiers step back. They exchange glances. The commander nods. They unchain him. He collapses face first in the sand. A hush followed by an exhale from thousands of throats. Some throw handfuls of sand at the spot. Others turn away, looking for an excuse to leave. Others remain seated, breathing heavily. You stand suddenly. Your legs protest. You realize you're trembling. The man doesn't move. His chest rises once more slowly, then stops. Someone says he's dead. You aren't sure. You didn't see the final blow. You only heard it, metal on bone. The crowd rises, shifting toward the exits. You want to follow? You want to run. But you stay. Your hands are clenched around the stone bench. You taste the agony, the curiosity, the guilt. You realize something darker you came here to watch. You stayed to see how far they'd go, and to see how far you would let them. Time here is measured in drum beats. You've lost count of how many have sounded today, but you recognize this one. A single drum roll, low and steady, echoing off the stone tiers like a heartbeat slowing toward its last pulse. It begins deep in the hypogeum, then travels up through the arches, carrying a message everyone knows. The show is almost over. You feel it in your bones, first a slight tension in your chest, as if the arena itself is holding its breath. The entire crowd stills. Even the vendors pause mid-step, their trays of olives and cakes forgotten. The breath of 10,000 people hangs in the air, heavy and expectant. You shift on the marble, trying to steady your muscles that have become accustomed to tension. Your throat is dry, your tunic sticks to your skin, and still you listen. The drum repeats 2 beats now. 1, 2, a silent space. Then one more louder, insistent. A banner is unfurled near the emperor's box. Crimson fabric with gold embroidery. Solvit, ludi, the games will end. The words are ancient, but the meaning is immediate. A horn sounds in the distance, crisp and clear. The crowd murmurs some cheer, gratefully, some groan in disappointment. You realize, though, you've sat here for hours, you've forgotten what came first, fear or fascination. You lean forward, resting your elbows on your knees. Below the sand is dark and pocked with marks of countless tragedies. The rakers are already moving in, ready to sweep away the last traces. A group of performers emerges, silk dancers in pastel robes, too gentle, too delicate after the brutality you've witnessed. They twirl, offering a final spectacle of beauty and artifice. Their movements are slow, deliberate, meant to soothe, to signal closure. You watch them, but your mind is elsewhere. It drifts to the man who refused to kill the cripple under the boar's charge, the child with the dagger, the veteran's steady gaze, all of them passing in and out of light like phantoms. The final drumbeat sounds 3 quick strikes, each one a hammer blow to the chest. A hush falls again. You realize you're holding your breath, heart thumping in your throat. And then the emperor stands. He raises his scepter. A silence so complete, you can hear the soft rustle of togas, the twitch of a slave's sandals, the exhale of a nearby spectator. Ludus solvit, he proclaims. The games are concluded. A surge of movement erupts. Some people applaud politely, some push toward the exits, others remain, as if caught in a trance, unwilling to believe that the blood-stained sand will never again host more suffering, at least not today. You stand too, muscles protesting. The stone beneath you feels cold now, but it steadies you. You let the moment sink, in the end of an ordeal, the collapse of tension, the release of every held breath. The dancers trace their final bows, and the pit doors begin to close. Chains clink. The lamps are lit near the arches to guide the departing crowd. You exhale. Air rushes in, cool and welcome. You taste it dusty, acrid, but alive. As you prepare to leave, you glance back at the arena one last time. The sand looks empty now, but you know its memory holds every echo of pain and every flicker of defiance you've witnessed. You gather your belongings, crushed nuts, a half-finished cup of wine, a handful of rose petals someone dropped. You walk down the steps, pressing past damp stone and turned faces. The end has come, and with it, a quiet emptiness you didn't expect. Outside, the evening air greets you, cool breeze carrying distant laughter, faint music, and the promise of safety. But you carry the drum's last beat with you, a reminder that here in Rome time and violence share the same rhythm, and the echo of cruelty lingers long after the games have closed. The pit doors creak open once more, but this time there's an unexpected hush before the usual roar. You lean forward, heart thumping in your chest, as a lone figure emerges. He's a middle-aged man, gaunt from days, or perhaps weeks of confinement. His wrists are free, though his ankles remain shackled. His tunic is threadbare, stained with sweat and sand. But what catches your attention is the scroll clutched in his hand. He pauses in the center of the arena, holds the scroll aloft, and raises his voice. It's raw, cracked from lack of use, but clear. May I sing? The question hangs in the air. A ripple moves through the crowd. Murmurs of confusion, curiosity, even amusement. A few children clap in anticipation. A vendor leans in, tilting his tray, eager to hear more. You find yourself silent too. You lean sideways for a better view. The man's eyes sweep the tears, searching faces. Yours catch his, and for a moment he nods as though finding an ally. A guard steps forward, hand on his spear, ready to object. But a signal, a small wave of the emperor's hand halts him. No one knows why. Perhaps the emperor is curious. Perhaps he's tired of the usual brutality. The man clears his throat. The scroll unfurls. Simple lines of verse written in neat script. He raises one hand, the other, holding the parchment, and begins to sing. The melody is haunting minor chords, plucked on a small lyre held by a musician somewhere offstage. The song drifts upward, soft as a whispered prayer. You feel it in your chest, a gentle vibration that contrasts sharply with the harsh stones around you. He sings of distant fields of home and hearth of a river's silver ribbon winding through olive groves. His voice wavers at first, but gains strength. You can taste the nostalgia in each word, the ache of memory. The crowd goes quiet. Even the birds overhead pause as if listening. The only sound is the prisoner's voice, full of longing and regret. I walked through fields of barley, under a sky of iron light. My father's house lay golden, yet I stand here in endless night. You realize tears are stinging your eyes. You wipe your cheek, surprised by your own emotion. The man's face is illuminated by the sun, every line and wrinkle visible. He's not performing for applause. He's speaking to souls, not spectators. He turns a page, reads the next stanza. His voice cracks as he sings of love, lost to war of laughter, silenced by chains of songs that die unheard. The irony lingers here in the heart of Rome's greatest spectacle. A man begs not for mercy, but for a moment of beauty. A few spectators whisper prayers under their breaths. You hear someone say, "May the gods hear him." Another replies, "May he live to finish his song." The final verse arrives. The music softens, a lone flute echoing the melody. His eyes close. He sings of a distant dawn of hope, rising like the sun of the promise of peace beyond this cruelty. If dawn should find me broken, with dust upon my brow, let this song be the token that life could conquer now. He lowers the scroll. The musician fades the last note until only the man's breathing remains. Silence reigns for a heartbeat. Then a soft clap. One person starts, then another. The applause grows tentative at first, then earnest. A few voices cry encore, though none expect another verse. The guards glance at each other, uncertain. The emperor leans forward, studying the singer. He lifts his thumb, an act of mercy. The crowd erupts. People cheer, shout Vita Life as if celebrating a gladiator's victory. The man's eyes widen. He kneels and bows deeply. Tears fall unnoticed, carving paths through the dust on his cheeks. A runner steps forward, breaks his shackles, and helps him stand. The man lifts his head, gazes once more at the audience, and mouths a silent "thank you." The call to clear the arena never comes. The troupe of dancers re-enters, twirling around the freed man, guiding him toward an exit that leads to the imperial box. You stay frozen, replaying every line of that song in your mind. The aroma of crushed petals drifts through the arch's remnants of earlier ceremonies. It mingles with the faint chord of the lyre, still echoing somewhere in the stone corridors. The next act begins a pack of wolves unleashed from a trap door. You feel a pang of guilt at your eager anticipation. Was it cruelty or beauty that moved you, or both intertwined so deeply that you can no longer separate them? You rise to your feet with the crowd uncertain whether to cheer again or weep. The man's song lingers, a ghost of melody, haunting the stones long after his footsteps have disappeared. And you realize sometimes, in the cruelest of places, art can bloom like a fragile flower, and that even in the darkest arena, a single song can wield the power to save a life. You stand up suddenly, as if jolted by an unseen force. The stone bench presses cold against your legs, and you realize you can't sit another moment. Your chest feels tight, lungs craving air. You are leaving now. You push through the rows weaving between spectators, whose faces blur with sweat and blood. The smell of iron grows fainter with every step. You taste relief on your tongue, a dryness that makes you swallow hard. Behind you, the arena's roar continues, unabated gladiators clashing beasts, roaring drums pounding. It all feels distant, like someone else's nightmare. Your heart pounds, echoing in your ears. You reach the exit archway. Sunlight spills in, harsh and bright, unlike the arena's golden haze. You inhale air sharp and electric, scented with dust and sweat. For a moment you think you'll run, but you don't. A hand grips your arm. You freeze. It's a fellow spectator, eyes wide and desperate. "Wait," he hisses. "Don't go now, please." His voice cracks. You look at him, strangers both caught between relief and the compulsion to stay. His gaze searches yours. You saw it too, right? It's unreal. You nod, but your arm throbs where he holds you. You realize you're caught in more than his grip. The shadow of the Colosseum clings to you, heavy and insistent. He steps aside, offering a way out. Yet something in your chest tightens again, the fear of leaving, of missing the final act. You weigh the dread of more cruelty against the dread of absence, of not knowing how it ends. Your feet drag. The exit recedes. You turn back. Back toward the stone tiers. Back toward the blood-stained sand. Back toward the heart of cruelty you both revile and cannot abandon. Inside, a new spectacle begins, a line of condemned prisoners, shackled and trembling, herded like cattle. The Emperor's trumpet blares a challenge. The crowd surges to its feet. You realize the moment you tried to escape was the moment you belonged. You are spectator and prey, witness and participant. You release a breath you didn't know you held and step back into the arena's long shadow. Your companion slips away, leaving you alone with the roar. You find your bench again, empty, sun-bleached, but beckoning. You sit, every muscle aching, every nerve alive. You lean forward, bracing your elbows on your knees, and watch. You watch because you must, because to look away now would be to deny what you've seen and what you've allowed yourself to feel. The beasts are let loose. The prisoners shout. The crowd's thirst returns, insatiable as ever. You close your eyes for a fraction, just long enough to feel your pulse slow, then start again. When you open them, you know you will stay until the last drum beat, because cruelty is magnetic, and the Colosseum's pull is stronger than your fear. You didn't know such luxury existed so close to the carnage. A narrow passage behind your tier of seats leads away from the clamor of the arena into an entirely different world. You follow it, curiosity burning hotter than the noonday sun. The scent changes from iron and sweat to roasting meat, spiced wine, and fresh bread. Voices, laughter, conversation rise in a bubbly murmur. You emerge into a courtyard behind the stands. Long tables groan under platters piled high. Whole boars roasted to a glossy mahogany sheen. Legs of lamb marinated in garum and herbs, platters of sweet figs and dates glistening in honey. Slaves in crisp tunics offer goblets of mulsum sweet wine mixed with honey and pitchers of chilled water. Their eyes flick to you, an outsider, before shifting back to hurried tasks. Seated at the tables are the elite senators in white togas trimmed in purple, equestrians in silk cloaks, wealthy matrons whose jewels catch every stray shaft of light. They recline on low couches propped by cushions of embroidered silk, their sandals kicked off as they sample the feast. One woman lifts a silver chalice, sips her mulsum, and leans toward her companion. You catch words, spectacle, tribute, favor, and realize they speak of the arena below. They gossip about which beast performed best, which gladiator impressed the emperor, which act will be remembered. You edge closer to eavesdrop. A senator gestures grandly, describing in detail how the morning's lion hunt was rigged. They let the lion live just long enough to please the crowd, then released another to finish the job. He laughs. You feel bile rise in your throat. A matron, young hair braided with gold fillets, takes a piece of roasted dormouse and pops it into her mouth. She chews delicately, unmindful of the shrubs lining the courtyard, where wine-cooled fountains trickle, sending mist into the mid-afternoon air. She sighs, eyes closed, as if tasting privilege itself. You drift from table to table. In one corner, a group of officers share fresh oysters and discuss the latest campaign in Britannia. In another, a troupe of actors laugh about their upcoming performance under the archways of the Hippogeium. None of them glance toward the ramp where condemned men and beasts are paraded, as if that world belongs to someone else. A slave offers you a plate, a gesture of hospitality so unexpected you almost decline. But hunger and intrigue win. You take a roasted quail, its skin crackling under your fingers, and bite into it. The flavors: salted meat, a hint of cumin, the faintest tang of vinegar, distract you from the violence you left behind. You glance over the parapet, above the tables. The arena's lip is visible, a thin, black line against the bright sand. You see a flash of bronze armor, a roar. Then the passage you came through, empty, as if it never existed. Behind you, someone pours more wine into your cup. You look up to see a servitor, young, serious, offering a fresh goblet. His robes bear the crest of a powerful patrician family. You nod thanks. He inclines his head and slips away. You settle onto a marble bench at the end of the table. A senator seated beside you, an older man, hair silvered, raises his cup. To the games he toasts. May they delight us always. You raise your cup politely, but you cannot bring yourself to drink. He grins and lifts an olive to his lips. Nothing binds Rome together like the spectacle, he says. Here we break bread with friends, while others break bodies for our amusement. You look at your goblet. The wine glints like blood. You taste it, sweet, sticky, and wonder how easily it slides down, how quickly pleasure follows horror. A slave appears with a tray of sweet pastries, honey-glazed rounds studded with almonds. You take one. It melts on your tongue. A luxurious indulgence, and yet the crunch of almond bits reminds you of shrapnel in the sand. The senator beside you laughs uproariously at a joke from his companion. You realize they have no idea what's happening below right now. They only know that the show entertains them, that it is their privileged proof of their power that allows them to dine while others die. You swallow hard, feel the marble bench press into your back. The courtyard is quiet now, save for the clink of goblets and the murmur of conversation. The sky is bright, unmarred by birds. None dare circle this close to the wings of senators. You finish your pastry, dab your lips with a linen cloth, and rise. The feast carries on. No one will miss you. You walk back through the stone corridor, retracing your steps toward the roar of the arena. As you rejoin the crowd, the laughter and singing echo behind you, carried on the wind like distant bells. You step into the heat, once more, hunger for spectacle rekindled. But now you carry with you the taste of roasted boar and honeyed wine, a reminder that cruelty and luxury walk hand in hand in Rome. And you realize with a shiver that your role here is twofold: witness to blood and guest at the table of power. You watch the next condemned man stumble into the arena, and something about him feels different. He wears the marks of many battles, scars across his ribs, a missing finger, a limp that throws his gait off balance. When the gates clank shut behind him, he pauses mid-sand, head bowed, as if anchoring himself to what's about to come. The crowd's roar swells. You grip your bench, expecting the usual spectacle: a gladiator's flourish, a beast's snarl, a death throw. Instead, he stands motionless, shoulders slumped, breathing ragged. The trumpets blare, but you notice no sword, no net, no whip at his side. A guard steps forward, trident raised, and jabs at the man's shoulder. He staggers, but instead of fighting back, he goes still. His eyes roll upward, his arm drops slack, his knees buckle. Then he collapses onto the sand, face first, limbs splayed, as if dropped from a great height. For a moment, the arena holds its breath. The guard lowers his trident uncertainly. The announcer stammers, tries to rally the crowd, but finds no words. Slowly, the guards exchange glances. One kneels, touches the man's neck, checks a pulse. A whisper passes along the wall. He's dead. The crowd erupts, some cheer in triumph. Others cheer at the macabre success. A handler strides in and slaps a hook under the fallen man's chin, preparing to drag him away. The herald signals for the next act, and the grooms rush in with rakes and torches. The sand is swept, the blood-stained corpse, marked for removal. You lean forward, heart pounding. You're close enough to see the man's chest barely rising. You swallow, certain you must be mistaken, but the raker raises his torch for a final glance, then steps back with a curse. The man's eyes flicker under the dust of the arena floor. The guards pause. The crowd's clamor dips into confusion. In that pregnant silence, you see at a twitch of his fingers, a ragged breath, life trickling back into a body long presumed dead. The hook flings him roughly to one side. He rolls gasping. His head swirls beneath the bright light, and the stones come into view. He blinks, sees the horror in your eyes, and something fierce ignites in his gaze. You feel the breath catch in your throat. The crowd still believes he's lifeless. They step back, uncertain whether to celebrate or recoil. A beast handler hesitates at his post spear balanced in hand. The man pushes himself up, sand slipping from his limbs. He uses the ring of his shackles to pull himself erect, rocking with each inch. A drop of blood leaks from his temple where it smacked the ground, yet he stands swaying, but unbroken. You realize what he's done. Feign death to survive? A trick learned in some back-alley school of fighters, or taught by a desperate friend. A perilous gambit. If discovered too soon, the guards might kill him for the deceit. But his gamble pays off. He meets the gaze of the Emperor's emissary, a slender man with a wax tablet and quill who nods in stunned approval. The herald stumbles back, then signals no more acts. The games, at least for this moment, must pause. A ripple of whispers spreads through the crowd. He lived. He cheated death. He fooled the gods. Some cheer, others demand blood. The tension is electric, as if the arena itself vibrates at the proximity of this living paradox. You hold your breath. He raises a hand, stained and trembling. For once, he does not raise a weapon. He simply beckons for help, or perhaps for mercy. A slave pushes through, offering a cloak. The man wraps it around his shoulders, leaning on the slave's arm as they guide him toward the gate. Before leaving, he turns back. The eyes you met earlier now blaze with a mix of defiance and gratitude. He bows once deeply to the empty sand, paying homage to the place that tried to kill him, and nearly did. Then he is gone, swallowed by the shadows of the hypogeum. The gate clanks shut. The crowd erupts in applause, so fierce it shakes the stones. You stand as well, heart hammering, mind racing. You understand now. Here in the cruel heart of Rome, death can be an illusion, life a desperate act of theater. And you carry with you the memory of the man who cheated the arena, feigned his demise, and walked away alive. You thought you'd seen every form of commerce in the Colosseum. Merchants hawking figs, and roasted dormice vendors clinking bowls of mulsome perfumers selling oils scented with exotic spices. But then you notice her. A small girl, maybe 8 or 9, sitting on the step just below you, surrounded by a haphazard display of tiny vials and cloth pouches. She doesn't call out, doesn't shout. She simply sits there, her eyes bright and serious. On closer look, you realize what she's selling: amulets soaked in gladiator sweat. Each charm is a scrap of linen, folded small-tied with a thread of bright red wool. They dangle from slender cords, ready to be worn around the neck or wrapped around the wrist. Next to them lie glass vials, corked and sealed, each half filled with a reddish liquid blood. No, you're pretty sure it's sweat. You've smelled it before: salt and iron with a faint trace of the garum and herbs the fighters eat to toughen their bodies. The girl's mother, a stooped woman clutching a bundle of empty vials stands behind her, shadowing her from the sun. She watches the crowd waiting. A man in the row ahead spots the display. He leans down, picks up a cloth pouch, and holds it to his nose. His eyes close as he breathes deeply. He glances at the girl, smiles, then drops 3 bronze coins into her small, outstretched hand. You're astonished. 3 coins for a scrap of sweaty cloth. You look at the pouch, stitched crudely with bits of red wool. The price seems absurd. But the man loops the cord around his wrist over his tunic and sits back. You see the pouch quiver at his pulse point, as if it's alive. Another spectator, worried about an upcoming duel, approaches. She picks up a vial and shakes it, watching the droplets inside. The mother explains in a hushed voice that the contents are from the champion who defeated the beast that morning. It's supposed to grant courage and fortitude of the arena. She says these exact words as though they were magical incantations. The woman nods gravely, pays 4 coins, and hides the vial in her dress. You lean closer to the girl. She meets your gaze without blinking. You ask softly, "How do you collect it?" She smiles faintly, surprisingly adult for her years, and holds up a small copper cup. They sweat into these after the fight. Then we pour it here. She gestures at the vials. Fresh from this morning's match, blessed by the Emperor's own perfumer. You raise an eyebrow. The Emperor's perfumer. It sounds like a rumor, but the mother mumbles that anyone who can afford the highest fee has their sweat purified in rose oil and spiced with myrrh, a gift fit for a consul's wife. A young soldier sweating beneath his breastplate approaches. He holds out a noble's signet ring. "The champion's courage keeps me alive in battle," he says, voice tight. He slides a pouch over his ring finger like a talisman, then slips it back into his armor. You catch his expression, half relief, half bemusement. You catch yourself reaching for a pouch. You hesitate. This is superstition so blatant it should repel you, and yet the pull is strong. You watch the girl's small fingers close around coins as she counts them, her mother nodding approval. You imagine tying the linen scrap around your own wrist, feeling it brush your skin as you face the next act. The interlude ends. A hunter's horn sounds. The girl's mother gathers the remaining charms. She tucks them into a leather satchel at her hip, then scoops up her daughter under one arm. They slip away toward the hypogeum exit, leaving behind vials of sweaty charm and a row of empty steps. You stare at the spot where they sat. It's as if they were never there. The sunlit stone gleams clean again. You close your eyes and picture the little pouch on your wrist. The thought makes your heart beat a fraction faster. Fear or anticipation, you're not sure which. A new roar fills the arena as the next beast is unleashed. A dozen hands come down with shields. A lion charges. You realize your fingers are clenched at your side as though you're holding that invisible charm. You breathe in tasting dust and sweat and the faintest trace of rose. You wonder whether the charm truly works, if courage can be bottled, or whether once more it's just another trick in the Empire's greatest performance. Yet you can't stop feeling its pull, that tiny promise of protection, even as you remember here, in this place, belief is as fluid as blood. You slide an imaginary pouch beneath your tunic, grip it tight, and lean forward. Because at the Colosseum, even fear needs reinforcements. You don't expect to find mirrors here, a place built for bloodshed, not vanity. Yet, as you follow the ritual cleaning, something catches the light. A polished bronze shield, left propped against a column. It's not part of the show, just one of the many pieces of discarded armor. You lean closer, drawn by a glint you can't resist. The shield tilts, angled just so. And for an instant, you see your own face. Distorted bronze filtered, but unmistakably yours. Your eyes widen. You recognize the sweat beating at your temples, the dust clinging to your hair, the lines of tension etched around your mouth. You step back, heart pounding. The image lingers on the curved surface, your cheeks streaked with grime, your fingers curled tight around the edge of the bench, your lips pressed in a line you didn't notice forming. Behind you, a new act begins, 2 gladiators entering the sand, but you can't look. The reflection holds you. It forces you to confront something you've tried to avoid, the part of you that finds fascination here. You tilt your head, examining every detail. Your pupils dilate with excitement. A thin sheen of redness rings your nostrils from the coppery tang in the air. You notice the faint tremor in your jaw, a remnant of fear or anticipation, you're not sure which. A child's laugh echoes nearby. You glance away, then back at the shield. The face, staring back, seems changed, hardened. You catch the glint of something in your eyes, complicity. Hunger, a desire to see more, no matter how cruel. You press a finger to your temple, as if to wipe away the memory. But you can't erase that look. The reflection shifts as you move. Now your brow furrows, now your lips part. You see yourself lean forward at the moment a lion lunged, hear your own gasp in your mind. You realize with a jolt that you cheered too. You clapped when the first drop of blood fell. You sat enthralled as the boar charged. You drank sweet wine while others bled for your amusement. Your face in the bronze doesn't lie. It reveals the truth. You are as much a participant as the gladiators and beasts. Your presence fueled the spectacle. Your bloodlust, sublimated but present, keeps the Colosseum alive. You step away from the shield, trembling. You glance toward the arena. The bronze cylinder is left behind another prop, soon to be polished, another surface to reflect the next witness. You imagine that somewhere above the Emperor watches you watching yourself. You wonder if he sees what you see, the moral blemish, the human stain. Your heart pounds so loudly, you fear it will drown out the roar. You close your eyes, breathe deeply. When you open them, your reflection is gone, replaced by the dull bronze surface, lifeless and still. You walk back to your seat, fingers brushing the edge of the shield's frame as you pass. You carry the image inside you, a reminder that in this place cruelty is contagion, and every cheer echoes back at us. You sit down. You watch the next duel begin. But inside, you know you're no longer the same spectator. You are the mirror, and you have seen yourself. The midday sun hangs high, relentless, baking the sand to a pale gold. The beasts and fighters have paused for a moment of surprising solemnity. A hush falls over the arena that you've only heard once before during the child's song. Now it returns heavy and sacred. You lean forward, curious. At the entrance opposite you, a lone figure emerges, a priest robed in simple white linen, stained faintly with red. His head is shaven save for a narrow band of hair circling his crown. In his hand he carries a bronze censer-thin chains, rattling as he moves. Smoke curls upward from incense, frankincense, perhaps mixed with myrrh, its fragrance mingling oddly with iron and dust. He pauses at the edge of the sand. The crowd stands uncertain whether to cheer or bow. The emperor himself rises on the platform, scepter in hand, eyes fixed on the priest. The priest turns slowly, surveying the arena. His gaze passes over fallen warriors, the still bodies of animals, the dark shapes of rakers dragging tools over the sand. At each point, he raises the censer and murmurs a prayer, words in a language older than the city, guttural syllables meant to bridge the mortal world and the divine. You feel something in your chest shift, a weight lifted briefly, as though the arena's violence might find absolution. You inhale the incense, cool and sweet, and for a moment the heat feels gentler. The priest advances to the central pit, where two bodies lie, a gladiator and a panther killed moments ago. The fighter's blood has seeped into the sand, dark rivers winding outward. The censer's smoke drifts across these pools. He halts, raises one hand high, and chants. The words echo off the stone tiers, so soft you strain to catch them. Bells ring, small bronze bells, strapped to his wrist, tinkling in time with each syllable. The crowd, hushed and reverent, listens. Then the priest dips a brush, made from the feathers of a sacred bird, into a bowl of water, mixed with wine. He steps to the first pool of blood. Carefully, he paints a cross into the sand, the wine water mingling with the blood. The mixture hisses faintly, as if acknowledging the symbol. You watch as he moves to the next, tracing another sign, a looping pattern that speaks of life, death, and renewal. Each stroke is deliberate, unhurried. The priest's lips move, uttering blessings for the fallen, for the survivors, for the emperor for Rome itself. A breeze picks up. The incense smoke spirals upward, carrying those whispered prayers into the arches. Some spectators cross themselves. A few kneel on their benches. You find your own hands rising, fingers brushing your lips before pressing to your chest. Below, the rakers stand at attention, tools in hand, as if guarding this sacred moment. Not a drop of blood is touched. Not a foot steps beside the priest. It is a consecration, a ritual that transforms cruelty into ceremony. When the priest finishes, he raises both arms. Benedictio sanguinis, he proclaims. A single clap from the emperor's hand follows, and the crowd responds with a murmur of Ave and Gloria. The priest bows deeply, drops the censer to the sand where it remains smoking, and retreats slowly, the bells fading into silence. The incense lingers like a blessing, softening the harsh lines of the arena's walls. You exhale, feeling a tremor run through you. For a heartbeat, you believe the violence could be sanctified, turned into something holy. Then, with a sudden gust of wind, the smoke dissipates, the scent fades, and the next act begins. A group of shield-bearers emerge, shields clashing, horns sounding. The moment's peace vanishes. Sand sprays as warriors march. The priest's censer is left behind, a relic in a place built for blood. You glance at it as it cools, bronze dulled by the ritual chains still slack on the ground. You rise unsettled. The memory of that blessing lingers, impossible to shake. The sand underfoot seems hallowed now, but you know its true nature. It still holds every drop of life spilled here, consecrated or not. You realize that in Rome, even bloodshed demands ceremony, and faith itself can be weaponized to give meaning to violence. And as you lean into the roar of shields and horns, you carry the echo of incense prayers, the lingering hope that somehow redemption might bloom amid the cruelty. You feel her before you see her. A sudden hush ripples through the crowd as a woman emerges from the tunnel. She's clutching a length of crimson cloth to her chest, her shoulders heaving with sobs. Her dress is simple, undyed wool, once white, now stained with dust and tears. She moves forward with purpose, though each step seems borrowed from an older strength, one long since exhausted. You watch her approach the arena's edge, where the guards stand in silent formation. The sand beneath her sandals is crossed with dark stains that still glisten in the afternoon sun. She kneels at the barrier, pressing both palms against the rough stone, head bowed, so that the cloth slips from her grasp and pools at her feet like spilled wine. A young guard steps forward, spear pointed down. He blocks her way. She doesn't resist. Instead, she lifts her head, eyes wild with grief, and raises trembling hands toward the sky. Her voice cracks the tense air. My son lies beneath that sand." She points to a segment of the arena floor where a trapdoor sits closed. You remember the young youth, barely more than a boy, you saw stumble into the pit earlier. His arm twisted, his face pale. You saw him taken away, the opening and closing of wood, the absence of his gasp. Now his mother stands where he last breathed. "Release him to me," she cries. "Let me hold him. Let me lay him in his cradle one last time." The guard's face is impassive. He glances at his captain. The captain glances at the emperor's box. The woman pleads again, voice rising to break your own heart. "He had a daughter at home. A newborn. He was a soldier. Yes, but he was my boy." A murmur travels through the benches. Some spectators shift in their seats, uncomfortable with this broken scene. Others lean forward, drawn by the rawness of a mother's grief. You feel the sand shift as the crowd's emotion moves, an undercurrent of empathy mixing with the usual thrill of the arena. The captain steps down, expression cold, hands on his belt. He addresses her in measured Latin words you don't fully understand, but the tone is clear denial. He gestures with one hand, pushing her back. Two other guards seize her by the shoulders. She struggles, hissing in pain, her cries tearing at the barrier between life and death. "Please," she gasps, tears streaking her cheeks like rain down stone. "I will give you gold, my jewels, anything, just my son." She reaches out through a sliver of darkness in the shattered wood, as if she could touch the earth under which he rests. You see her fingers press at the plank's nails, gouging the grain. You want to pull her back to shield her from the raw edge of this world, but you're frozen a witness to this private agony made public. A servant emerges from the shadows carrying bowls of water. He kneels before the woman, dips a cloth into the vessel, and presses it to her forehead, whispering words of consolation. She doesn't feel it. The cloth soaks through to her hair, mixing with her tears. Another servant uncovers the trapdoor, heaves it open with a swing of steel hinges. He kneels at the opening, peering into the darkness beneath. The arena's sand shifts as the blood drainers move in, clearing the edges. The mother leans forward, gasping as they pull a stretcher through an unadorned wooden board. On it lies a form wrapped loosely in white linen, soiled by the sweat and blood of the arena. A single bare arm, pale and drawn, protrudes from beneath the cloth. The mother stands, and something in the crowd catches its breath. You can hear your own heart thudding loud against the silent moment. The guards release her shoulders, and she hurries forward, tears flooding anew. She drops to her knees beside the board, brushes the linen aside to see his face. You look away, but you can't. She gently touches his cheek fingers, tracing the line of a bruise. His lips are slightly parted, as though he might speak. His chest lies flat. No breath moves there now. The mother presses her mouth to his, as if to breathe life back into him. She cradles his head in her lap, sobbing her cries unanswered by the empty air. Someone in the crowd utters a prayer. Others call out in lament. The arena's usual din has drained away, replaced by a mourning so complete it feels holy. You press your hands to your mouth to stifle a sob you can't stop. A priest appears beside the mother, raises his censer. Frankincense smoke curls across the scene, offering the only sanctity in this brutal amphitheater. He murmurs a blessing, words that feel both comforting and meaningless here. The mother closes her eyes, leaning into the smoke as though seeking forgiveness for her son's death or absolution for her own helplessness. The soldiers gather around the stretcher. Two carry it to the gate that leads beneath the stands. The mother rises, cradling her son's head, in the crook of her arm, the crimson cloth now stained with blood and tears. She staggers toward the exit, supported by the priest and a servant. The crowd watches in silence. No cheering, no clapping, just a collective exhale of grief. You stand as she passes each step, heaving heavy with sorrow. She glances up, ruin and grace intertwined in her gaze. For a moment, her eyes meet yours. You see her gratitude, an aching, haunted gratitude for the witness to her loss. Then she disappears into the shadows, the gate closing softly behind her. The arena remains. The sand tilts under the swinging doors. The vendors creep back in, the drums resume their steady beat, and the show goes on as if nothing has changed. But you know it has. You carry the imprint of that mother's plea, the weight of her son's lifeless body pressed to your chest. And you understand at last that the Colosseum's greatest cruelty is not in the blood spilled, but in the hearts broken, those torn by grief, left to wander its tears, forever searching for what can never return. You notice it in the shifting light as the sun begins its descent, the crowd slowly thinning, the vendors packing up their trays, the soldiers easing their spears back to rest. The final act has ended. The drums have fallen silent for the day. Yet the true echo of the Colosseum lies not in the spectacle you've witnessed, but in the absence that swallows the empty seats. You rise from your bench and descend the worn stone steps. Each footfall sounds hollow in the fading roar of departing spectators. Around you, groups of friends chatter excitedly about the blood and beasts, already forgetting the faces in the sand. Some carry tokens, shards of painted sand, a tuft of animal fur, proof they were here. Others simply mill toward the exit, arms linked, talking of where they'll feast tonight. But a few remain. You spot them, clustered near an unassuming side gate, soldiers in olive green cloaks, scribes in dusty togas, mothers in muted shawls. They stand quietly, heads bowed, waiting for something no spectacle can provide. You step closer. A servant rolls open a trapdoor in the arena floor. The scent of damp earth and iron drifts up. Two slaves kneel, lifting a stretcher covered in coarse burlap. They carry it through the gate into a shadowed tunnel beneath the stands. One of the soldiers, an older man with graying temples, sighs and glances at the sky. They'll never see their families again, he says, voice hushed. Most are buried in unmarked pits outside the city walls. You watch his lips move as he names them Lucius Gaius Marcus. None had ransom or kin to claim them. His words hang in the air like dust motes in a beam of light. You imagine those families, a mother lighting lamps in her tiny villa, waiting for her son's triumphant return. A brother pacing the narrow street, expecting a knock that will never come. A child clutching a ragged doll, believing tomorrow he will scamper home. Instead, their loved ones lie somewhere in the hypogeum, mixed among beasts and thieves, their bodies unclaimed, names erased by time. A scribe, a young woman with ink-stained fingernails, kneels at the gate. She presses a tablet to the stone and holds her stylus, poised above it. She's cataloging the day's toll: 6 gladiators, 4 criminals, 3 animals. She pauses at a name, Peregrinus, then slowly scratches a line through it. No patron listed, no widow's plea. She murmurs it as though the act carries weight beyond her slender finger. You step closer, compelled. The air grows cooler here, away from sunlight, heavy with the scent of damp stone and incense from a corner shrine. The smoke drifts over the gate where the stretcher ascends, now empty. The burlap remains stained with sweat, and blood a ghostly shroud. A mother, her hair coiled in a braid stained with dust, approaches. She carries a small urn of oil, scented with lavender. She kneels, dips a finger into it, and gently draws a line in the sand, a farewell mark, a prayer for safe passage. For my boy, she whispers, may this oil guide your spirit home. Then she rises, her eyes glassy, and walks away without a backward glance. You feel a tightness in your chest. The Colosseum's cruelty was on display all day, but this silent ceremony is the true brutality, the forgetting, the unspoken grief that lingers when the crowd's laughter dies. You stand at the edge of the gate as the tunnel's darkness swallows the last flicker of sunlight. A guard places a wreath of laurel at the threshold, a token of honor, though it's meaningless to the dead who will never receive it. He nods, once a gesture of respect you doubt will ever reach beyond the stone walls. You think of your own reflection in that bronze shield, the part of you that cheered, that craved more. And now you stand here, witnessing the aftermath, those who were claimed by the games, then left behind by the living. A breeze winds through the arches, carrying distant laughter, the clatter of cleanup, the promise of tomorrow's performance. The gate slides shut with a dull thud. The laurel wreath tilts dark against the sand. The Colosseum exhales. You turn away, stepping into a corridor lit by oil lamps. The guard extinguishes a torch, plunging the passage into flickering shadow. You hurry past, wanting to leave, yet knowing you will carry this image, the empty stretcher, the unclaimed bodies, the silent watchers. Outside, the city glows in twilight. Lanterns flicker along the Via Sacra. Merchants begin their evening calls. You breathe in the aroma of fresh-baked bread and spiced wine. Life goes on, but you know that somewhere beneath the stones, in corridors unseen, the forgotten remain. The Esau, the ones who never return home, are memorialized only by a hastily scrawled name on a clay tablet, a wreath left at a wooden gate, and the quiet tears of strangers who remember. And as you walk away, the Colosseum stands silent behind you, its stones hungry for your return, its shadows echoing with the stories of those who will never get to tell theirs. You notice them before you realize what they are, a line of stern-faced men in gleaming breastplates and scarlet cloaks spaced evenly around the perimeter of the arena. Their helmets bear the imperial eagle, their sandals echoing in unison on the stone as they patrol in precise measured steps. They are the Quai Sat-de-Quoc, the Empire's watchful eyes, and they do not smile. You shift on your bench, heart pounding slightly, as one of them pauses at the archway where you entered. His gaze scans every face in the crowd, lingering a fraction too long on yours. You catch his eye, and he inclines his head almost imperceptibly, as though acknowledging your presence and your compliance. You relax, reminding yourself that you have done nothing but watch. Yet in this place, watching can be dangerous. The guards stand silent sentry through the final spectacles. When the lions are released, tawny beasts whose claws dig into the sand, they do not flinch. When the gladiators clash steel, ringing, flesh-yielding, they do not react. Their duty is not to participate, but to observe and enforce. Moments ago, you tried to slip away after the mother's plea. A guard intercepted you, his hand firm on your forearm. He spoke softly in Latin, too softly for the crowd to hear, and pointed back toward the benches. You did not turn. You could not. The Can Sat-de-Quoc do not understand mercy. You rise now, wanting to feel the cool stone under your feet rather than the burning bench, but the guard blocks your path. He stands between you and the exit, feet planted spear upright. His expression is impassive, unreadable. You imagine asking permission, but the words die in your throat. Instead, you step back, yielding the aisle to other repositioning spectators. A trumpet sounds a final call to arms, or perhaps a signal that the games are truly over. The guards straighten, forming a moving wall as they march around the arena's rim. You follow their movement with your eyes. Each man wears a thick leather belt from which hang pouches, a dagger, and a small scroll case, likely the orders of the day: who to detain, who to escort, which pockets to check. A sudden skirmish breaks out near the lower tier, two drunks quarreling over a dropped purse. A guard reaches them in two strides, seizes one by the shoulder, and drags him away without ceremony. The other man slurs apologies, scattering coins. The guard scoffs, pocketing the purse before marching his prisoner through a side gate into the shadows. You swallow, realizing that the same could happen to you if you overstep. The Can Sat-de-Quoc maintain the boundary between sanctioned spectacle and chaos, between the Empire's controlled violence and the unpredictable anarchy of the streets. Near the Emperor's box, a captain reviews a list on his scroll. He touches a name, looks up, then signals a pair of guards. They detach from the patrol line and hurry toward the drainage tunnel beneath the sand. You hear muffled voices, arguments perhaps, before the hatch closes, and darkness claims whoever was beneath. A woman in the row behind you gasps. "Who are they taking?" she whispers. Her hand trembles around her wine cup. Her neighbor shrugs. The guards return silence, trailing them like a cloak. You grip your own cup tighter, feeling the weight of unseen actions, arrests, interrogations, confiscations. The Colosseum is not only a place of public death, but also of private judgments. At any moment, you might be judged too. The sun dips lower. Long shadows stretch across the arena, making the guards appear taller, more ominous. You watch as one of them crosses beneath your row, glance flicking up. You imagine what orders he carries. Search for subversive pamphlets, arrest anyone who speaks ill of the Emperor. Ensure no slave leaves unescorted. Their presence is a reminder that even in leisure the Empire never sleeps. A group of children tugs at a guard's cloak, begging for tokens. The guard kneels, produces a handful of oil lamps, small trinkets bearing the Emperor's face, and tosses them down. The children laugh, scrambling across stones. The guard stands, adjusts his helmet, and resumes patrol. His duty bound between cruelty and charity, between threat and gift. You realize you have been holding your breath. You exhale slowly, tasting dust and sweat. You never felt safer here, nor more vulnerable. The Can Sat-de-Quoc embody both the allure and the dread of Rome's power, the promise of order, the threat of violence. As the last spectators file out, you remain seated, watching the guards close the final gates. The roar of the crowd has long since faded. The sand is smooth, the benches empty. Only the patrol continues a rhythmic loop around vacant stone, the only sound of authority in the twilight. You stand at last, shoulders stiff, and move toward the corridor. A guard steps aside, nods curtly. You pass him, heart-pounding, feeling his eyes on your back until the lamps of the tunnel swallow you whole. Outside, the city streets are bright with torches and chatter. You breathe in the night air, a mix of roasting olives, wood smoke, and distant music, and wonder how quickly you will forget this place. The Can Sat-de-Quoc will remain vigilant and unblinking until dawn calls them back to watch again. And you realize the greatest performance at the Colosseum is not the death in the arena, but the Empire's unending spectacle of control, reminding every spectator that here power is planted in every breath, every glance, every silent step of those who guard the heart of Rome. That night, sleep comes like a fragile truce. You lie on your cot body, still humming with the day's sights and sounds. Your mind drifts into darkness, but the Colosseum doesn't let you rest. In your dream, you're back on those stone benches. The arena stretches before you under a bruised sky. The sand is damp slick with blood and rain. The gates stand silent, waiting. You hear distant drums, slow, ominous, and feel the bench beneath you shift. You stand though no one else moves. You step down the tiers alone, each footfall echoing in the empty amphitheater. You cross the faded lines where bodies once lay. You trace your fingers along the raked sand, feeling its grit under your nails. A gate creaks. Out steps the boy with the dagger, the one you saw fall so quickly. Now he moves towards you, blade in hand, eyes hollow. He lifts the weapon overhead. You can't scream. You can't look away. He pauses, gaze fixed on yours. Then the beast emerges, a massive lion mane, matted ribs showing. It stalks forward, but instead of attacking the boy, it strides to you. You back away, heart pounding, but your feet don't move. The lion's golden eyes hold yours. You wake with a gasp. The morning sun slants through the window. Your heart thunders. The sheets stick to your skin from sweat. You sit up, breath ragged, as though you've just fled the arena. For hours the dream lingers. Every time you close your eyes, you're there again, stone benches dripping sand. That boy's plea the lion's silence. You taste iron on your lips. Hear the crowd's hush vibrating in your chest. In the quiet of daylight, you wonder, was it a warning or an invitation? Does the arena follow you into dreams, or does your mind seek refuge in its brutal embrace? You slip from the cot unsettled. The world feels too bright, too soft. You rub your eyes. Remember the dream's edges, how the beast wore no malice, how the boy looked more scared of you than of death. Perhaps the Colosseum never lets its echo die. It seeps into your sleep, shaping nightmares that blur the line between spectator and prey. And you realize no matter how far you wander, the memory of that day will follow you home, haunting your rest long after the gates have closed. The next morning the city hums with light and warmth. Bread vendors shout, coins clink in eager hands, and the streets feel freshly scrubbed, as though yesterday's horrors were simply washed away with the night's rain. You walk through the forum, half hoping the silence in your chest might find echo in someone else's face. But instead, you hear laughter. Two young men lean against a marble column, tearing bread with olive-stained fingers. Their words drift easily through the crowd. Did you see the crippled one try to run the first says, nearly choking on his bread? Fell flat like a sack of wheat. Might as well have crawled in himself. The second laughs. And that scream like a donkey being strangled. He mimics the sound, grotesque and exaggerated. Made my drink taste better, I swear. You stop walking, not because of the cruelty in what they said, but because of the ease, the comfort with which they twist suffering into spectacle again long after the sand has soaked in the blood. You take a step forward, then pause. It isn't just them. At the corner stall, a group of women gathers around a vendor selling bone-carved charms. One of them picks up a red-stained amulet and giggles, "This one's fresh. Might still have bits of yesterday's champion on it." Another claps her hands. "I heard his blood was used in perfume. That senator's wife, what's her name? She wore it to dinner." They laugh loud and bright, as if they were discussing a new shade of lipstick. You turn away, but the words cling to you like smoke. Further down, two shopkeepers haggle over prices while swapping commentary about the last execution. The boy with the broken leg, one says, tried to sing for mercy. The other guffaws. If I were the judge, I'd have killed him just for being off-key. More laughter, shards of yesterday broken into punchlines. You walk faster, past taverns where drunken men raise mugs and toast to the best head roll we've seen all year. Past children swinging pretend swords, shouting mercy, mercy, in jest, their faces painted with soot and pride. No one mentions the mother who begged for her son's body. No one speaks of the boy who never picked up the dagger. No one remembers the silence that came after the slow death or the song that saved a man. Or maybe they remember, but they choose to forget. They choose to smooth over the horror with humor, to soften grief with jokes. It's easier to laugh than to feel. Easier to retell cruelty as comedy than carry its weight. And for a moment you understand. You too applauded. You leaned forward. You felt the rush when blood met sand. You reached for the charm vendor's pouch. You didn't look away. You too are capable of retelling it as a story, but not as a joke. You want to speak of the way the condemned man sang without trembling, of the priest who blessed the blood, of the girl who sold sweat-stained talismans with a steady gaze and no childhood in her voice. But no one would listen this morning. Not in the market, not at the bathhouse, not at breakfast. They would blink, nod politely, and say, "Well, it's just entertainment, isn't it?" You pass a tavern where a performer is reenacting yesterday's duel with exaggerated leaps and mock screams. The audience howls. A man pretends to die on stage, rolling theatrically, tongue-out, arms limp. You want to shout, "It wasn't like that." But you don't, because they wouldn't hear you. Not yet. You keep walking, slipping into an alley where the sun doesn't reach. The air is cooler here, quieter. You lean against the wall, breathing deeply, trying to forget the echoes. You close your eyes, but the roar of laughter follows you. You hear it twisting real pain into rhythm, grief into gossip, death into a shared joke. And you wonder, maybe the real horror isn't what happened in the arena. Maybe it's how easily we turn it into entertainment. By the time the sun droops low, the games have grown strange. You've seen all the usual things, blood beasts, blades, but now the gates open again, and something different steps out. A slave young and trembling with nothing in his hands but rhythm. No sword, no shield, no armor, just bare feet bruised and hesitant, and a small cluster of bells tied at his ankle. The crowd stirs with curiosity. This isn't a punishment execution. It's not a battle. The herald clears his throat and reads from a scroll, "Criminal, condemned untrained, given one chance to entertain." The boy stands in the center of the arena. His ribs move like reeds in the wind. You can see he's terrified, and yet he bows, low, like a performer or a prayer. Then the music begins. A single drum beat, then another, slow and steady. The boy lifts his arms and dances. Not like a trained performer, not like a noble's pet acrobat, but with desperation, with fluidity, with something you can't name. Every movement is raw, awkward, human, and somehow magnetic. He twists, he spins, he stumbles, then finds the rhythm again. The bells on his ankle jingle at first, out of sync, then perfectly in time. The crowd used to screams goes silent. He slides into a low bow, presses his palm to the blood-stained sand, and lifts it, slowly tracing invisible symbols into the air. There's no technique, no tradition, just motion survival made beautiful. You lean forward, breath caught. Because for a moment, the Colosseum becomes something else, not a place of death, but a stage. A hush falls, so thick you can hear the sand shift beneath his feet. Even the emperor narrows his eyes watching. Then the boy does something daring. He points. Not to the gods, not to the emperor, to the crowd, and then to himself. A question: do I deserve this? He spins once more, bells ringing louder now, and kneels. His chest rises and falls like storm-tossed waves. He doesn't beg. He waits, a full beat. Then another, and then the emperor lifts a hand. Thumb up, mercy. The arena erupts not with the usual riot of relief, but something else, applause. Not for victory, but for beauty, a different kind of survival. The boy sags to the sand, overwhelmed hands over his face. Two guards rush forward, not to drag him, but to help him stand. As they lead him away, the crowd chants not his name, they do not know it, but a word repeated again and again. Vita. life. You find yourself clapping too. And for the first time all day, it feels like something worthy of celebration, not death, not dominance, but a fragile, trembling act of creation in the center of a place built for ruin. You wonder if the boy had practiced in his cell, if he knew he had only minutes to make them feel something, if he chose movement because words were too dangerous. You'll never know. But you will remember that in the great ledger of cruelty, someone once danced and walked away. There's a different kind of silence when it's a girl. The crowd isn't sure how to react. At first, they think it's a mistake. She's too young, too slight, too still. She's led in by 2 guards, one on each side, holding her by the arms like she might run, but she doesn't. She walks with strange calm, her head high, her dark hair falling loose around her shoulders. She wears a simple tunic, stained at the hem, torn at the shoulder. Bare feet, no adornments, nothing in her hands. The announcer's voice cracks through the air. Convicted of adultery. Judgment by bestia. Some cheer at the words, others shift uncomfortably. A few laugh, but no one looks away. You don't either. She steps into the sand and stops. Her hands are bound in front of her with a thin cord that doesn't seem necessary. She's not resisting. She turns once slowly and scans the crowd. Her eyes don't plead. They study you. The gates at the far end open. A low growl rolls out. From the shadows, a creature emerges, a hyena gaunt, and lo, its eyes glowing amber in the sun. Its gait is crooked, uncertain, but it moves forward with purpose. It sniffs the air, ears flicking. The girl does not flinch. You hear someone nearby murmur, "She should run." Another whispers, "They always run." But she doesn't. Instead, she kneels. Not in surrender, not in fear. She places her hands on the sand, palms down. Then she leans forward, bowing until her forehead brushes the blood-stained ground. The hyena pauses. A beat. 2. Then it steps closer. You grip your seat. Every breath in the arena stops. The animal sniffs her hair, circles once, licks its snout. Then it walks away, just like that. A soft gasp ripples through the crowd. The guards exchange glances. One gestures toward the Beastmaster at the edge of the arena. He shrugs. The animal paces the far side, uninterested, disobedient. The girl rises. Sand clings to her skin. She's still breathing, but barely. The herald turns to the emperor. A decision must be made. All eyes turn upward. The emperor sits still for a moment, fingers drumming on the armrest. Then he lifts one shoulder in a half shrug. No verdict, no mercy. The Beastmaster raises a second gate. This time, a leopard steps out. Sleek, angry, hungry. The girl does not kneel again. She turns to face it. And she runs. Not toward the gate, not toward the guards. Toward the center of the arena. Her legs move fast, bare feet, slapping the sand-corded hands, pumping at her sides. She does not scream. She does not cry. The leopard bolts after her. You feel something in your chest twist as she runs, not in panic but like a thread pulled taut. She makes it halfway before the creature reaches her. You hear the sound. A single sharp yelp, then silence. The crowd cheers. Some applaud the beast. Others shout curses at the girl. You remain seated, unmoving. Her body lies crumpled near the base of the pillar. Blood seeps into the sand not quickly, but in a slow, widening bloom. The Beastmaster whistles. The leopard trots back toward the gate, its mouth wet. The herald lifts his hand. 2 servants enter with rakes. You swallow hard. She had no weapon. No armor. No speech. No name. Just a moment. A silence. A defiance. And the memory of a girl who didn't beg. You thought you'd grown numb by now. After the child with the dagger, after the hyena, after the mother clutching her son's body. But this one lingers differently from the moment he steps into the arena. He's older than most gray at the temples, skin leathery from years under the Roman sun. His tunic is frayed, but neatly tied. His steps are slow, careful. Not fearful, just deliberate. There's something in the way he carries himself that doesn't belong here. Not the posture of a condemned man, but of someone who accepts his fate like one might accept the coming of rain. Inevitable, cool, cleansing. He reaches the center and bows not to the emperor, not to the crowd, but to the sand. The arena is silent. The executioner walks out next, dressed in ceremonial red blade gleaming. His face is obscured by a cloth mask, a formality perhaps, or a kindness. The man kneels. His hands are not bound. He places them behind his back of his own will. You feel a hush settle over the arena, like a cloth drawn tight. Even the vendors fall still. The executioner steps behind him. But then the man turns his head, just slightly, toward the stands. His eyes sweep the crowd as though searching for someone, a face, a sign, or maybe just the reassurance that someone is watching. You are. He sees you. And then he speaks, not loudly, not defiantly, but clear enough to carry through the stillness. Thank you, that's all. 2 words, not to the emperor, not to the gods. To everyone, to no one. To the sky. The blade flashes, clean, swift. His body slumps forward, head bowing one final time. The sand receives him like it has 100 others. The crowd remains quiet. No cheer, no chant. Just the soft creak of the trapdoor opening again. You don't move. You replay the moment in your head, the tilt of his voice, the steadiness of his gaze, the weight of those words. Thank you. What could he have meant? Thank you for watching. Thank you for letting him leave the world with eyes upon him. Thank you for ending something. Or was it a message to someone long gone, spoken aloud in the only space where it might be heard? The executioner kneels, briefly wipes the blade, then walks away. A slave collects the body. The sand is raked. The world moves on, but you don't. Not yet. Because those words won't leave you. They echo inside your ribs, quietly insistent, like they were meant for you, like he knew you'd be there. You leave the arena hours later, long after the stands have emptied. The streets are noisy again. Children chase dogs through the dust. Wine flows. Someone sings. And still you hear it. Thank you. It follows you home. You find the scroll by accident. Not in a library, not in a senator's archive, but in the hands of a boy sitting cross-legged in the shade of a column near the baths. He's too young to be a scribe, too quiet to be a vendor. He looks up when you approach, but doesn't speak. You ask what he's reading. He holds it out. A single sheet of rough papyrus, the ink still dark. A list, it seems, at first glance. Then you see the dates, the names, and beside each one a phrase. Lucius M. dragged by bull silent. Tertia N. sang until the blade struck. Unidentified boy refused to scream. Old man, last words, thank you. You feel your heart tighten. This is no official record, no temple document, no tally of expenses or games won. This is memory. Someone has been writing them down. You ask the boy, is this yours? He shakes his head. It was left. On the seat. Yesterday. He shrugs as if this is normal things left behind, like bones in the sand. You sit beside him, reading each line slowly. Gladiator who danced instead of fought, spared. Still breathes? Young woman refused to run. Beast turned away. Then the leopard came. The words are spare. No embellishment, no judgment. Just truth. And it hits you harder than any shout from the arena. Someone out there saw it all like you and couldn't let it dissolve into gossip and laughter. Someone needed it to stay, needed to shape memory out of sand. You think of the faces you've seen, the ones erased by laughter, the ones remembered only in mockery. But here they remain. Line after line, the forgotten are reclaimed, not with monuments or marble statues, but with quiet ink on rough papyrus folded carefully into someone's hand. You ask the boy if you can copy it. He nods. You take a small wax tablet from your satchel and begin to carve. The names blur as you work. Some were never spoken aloud. Some were misheard. But here they become real. You pause at one line near the bottom. She asked for his body, was denied, waited anyway. You feel your throat tighten. You remember her shawl, her voice. You copy the words carefully, letting each stroke of the stylus settle into wax like a small vow. When you finish, you hand the scroll back. But the boy shakes his head. You keep it, he says, and then after a pause, add to it. You look at him again. He's not just a boy, he's a beginning. You nod. You fold the scroll and tuck it into your robe. As you rise, you look out at the city beyond the column's shade. The markets call. The chatter resumes. But beneath it all, you hear the names faint as breath sharp as truth. And you understand, not all stories are shouted from balconies. Some are whispered, preserved, protected. Someone wrote it down. And now, so will you. It doesn't hit you until much later. Not when the gates closed. Not when the last cry rang out. Not even when you stood to leave. It comes in the quiet. In the silence between the flicker of a torch and the whisper of your own breath. It comes in the way your fingers won't stop trembling. In the sour taste rising in your throat hours after the wine is gone. You're walking home alone, sandals scuffing dust over the same stones that led you in. The sun is gone, but its heat still lingers, like the memory of something that hurt. You thought the air would feel cleaner outside the arena. It doesn't. Every sound reminds you. A dog barking like the woman who screamed when the leopard lunged. A child laughing like the ones who clapped as blood soaked the sand. A door creaking like the gate that opened for a man who never came back out. You pass a well. A couple stands beside it, chatting about the next round of games. They say tomorrow will be better, one says. Lions and fire this time. You grip the wall. Better. That word settles in your gut like a stone. You look up at the stars and think of the girl who didn't run, of the boy who danced, of the old man who whispered thank you before the blade. You think of the mother still waiting. You thought you could stomach it. You told yourself you were just a witness. You weren't the one holding the blade. You didn't order the beasts. You didn't cheer. Not loudly, but you didn't stop it either. You remember leaning forward. You remember clapping. You remember holding your breath, not out of horror, but fascination. You remember not looking away. And that's what stays with you. Not what you saw, but what you did. You reach your door. Your hands fumble with the latch. You step inside, close it behind you. The light from the oil lamp flickers across the wall like flames licking bone. You sit in silence. You wipe your hands, even though there's no blood on them. You drink water, even though your thirst is deeper than your throat. You try to sleep, even though your body is too full of ghosts. You lie on your back, eyes open. And you think, I wish I hadn't gone. Not because of what you saw, but because now you can never unsee it. Now the sand is in your mind. Now the drums are in your chest. Now the cries echo down your bones like wind through catacombs. You know that tomorrow others will go. They'll lean forward, they'll laugh, they'll flinch, then cheer. And you'll stay away. But you'll hear it anyway. You always will. You were taught that gladiators fought for honor, that the arena was a place of bravery, not despair, that men died with dignity, steel in hand and fire in their hearts, that they welcomed the sand like a stage where heroes were made. But now, after everything you've seen, you know better. There was no glory in their eyes, only exhaustion, hunger, emptiness. They didn't fight for applause. They fought because they were told to, because saying no meant a worse death, because survival was not a choice, but a performance. You remember the way one gladiator hesitated before delivering the final blow, the way another collapsed not from a wound, but from shame. You remember the boy who didn't even pick up the blade. And you wonder, was there ever honor here? or just a story told to make us feel better, to make us believe cruelty can be noble if the costumes are good enough. The truth is quieter. It doesn't shout, it doesn't wear laurel crowns, it bleeds silently in the sand and is buried before the next show begins. They weren't heroes. They were humans, and they died not for Rome, but for Rome's need to watch them die. They called it panem et circenses, bread and circuses. A simple formula: keep the people fed, keep them entertained, and they won't ask questions about taxes, about war, about justice, about how their empire is really doing. And the Colosseum. It wasn't just a theater. It was a pressure valve. A way to bleed unrest into spectacle. You think about the crowd now, cheering, gasping, laughing, as men and women died just feet from their sandals. Not because they were cruel necessarily, but because they were tired, hungry, afraid, and Rome gave them distraction. Fed them just enough to quiet rebellion, offered them blood instead of answers. They came to the arena with empty bellies and left full of adrenaline. They didn't talk about failing crops or corrupt governors. They talked about lions, about screams, about bets won and bones broken. And it worked. Rome survived its own rot for centuries longer than it should have, because the games kept people watching the sand, not the Senate. You wonder how many in the crowd truly cared about the people who died. And how many just wanted to feel like part of something, a ritual, a release, a safe place to see cruelty, and call it celebration. You tell yourself you were just watching, that you didn't hold the blade, that you didn't open the gate, that you didn't shout for death. But you didn't stop it either. You sat there. You leaned forward. You listened to the crowd swell and let yourself be carried by it. And when the old man whispered his last words, you didn't look away. Does that make you cruel? Maybe not, but innocent. No. Because every scream that echoed in that place was fed by silence, by eyes that stayed open, by mouths that didn't speak. You think about how many people sat beside you, clapping, laughing, gasping, and you realize none of you were alone in your guilt. You were a crowd, and crowds are never clean. The arena didn't need 1,000 killers. It just needed 1,000 people willing to stay seated. You see it now clear as sunlight on stone. Cruelty doesn't survive without an audience. And sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't what we do. It's what we let happen. You'd like to believe we've left all this behind. That blood in the sand is a relic of the past. That the Colosseum is just a ruin now, empty, echoing safe. But you know better. You see its shape everywhere. In the way we gather around screens, in the way we scroll past pain, in the way we slowed down to look at the wreckage. We don't call it an arena anymore. We call it entertainment. We call it content. A reality show meltdown, a live stream fight, a stranger humiliated in front of millions. And we watch, we react, we laugh, we forget. Then we move on. Someone's worst moment becomes someone else's favorite clip. And just like the Colosseum, it's all dressed up, framed in music filters, bright colors. The pain made pretty, the cruelty made clickable. We tell ourselves it's different, that no one dies. But reputations do. Dignity does. Sometimes the soul does. And what's most familiar of all isn't the spectacle, it's the silence that surrounds it. The way we keep scrolling. The way we stay seated. The arena hasn't gone. It just changed shape. And we're still sitting in the crowd. You've asked yourself this more than once now. Why didn't I look away? You weren't forced. You could have turned your head, closed your eyes, walked out. But you didn't. And maybe the answer is older than you are. Older than Rome. There's something about watching others suffer, something terrible and magnetic. It reminds you that you're safe, that you're lucky, that you're alive. It gives you a shape for your fear, a container for your chaos. It makes pain feel distant, manageable, something you can measure from a seat far above the sand. And sometimes it even feels good. Not in a cruel way, but in the way a storm can feel good from behind a window, or a fire from far enough away to stay warm, not burned. You want to believe you're better than this, but the truth is every scream you heard echoed something inside you. Curiosity, powerlessness, relief. The arena doesn't just reveal who's fighting. It reveals who we are when we're watching, and what we do with that mirror. Now that it's over, now that the gates are shut, the blood raked, smooth, the crowd gone, you sit with the only thing left, the question. If you were there again, would you look away? Not in theory, not from the safety of hindsight, but in the moment, when the blade is raised, when the scream cracks the air, when everyone around you leans in. Would you be different? Would you speak up? Would you leave, or would you watch? You don't have the answer. Not yet. Maybe none of us do. But maybe the point isn't to have the answer. Maybe the point is to keep asking, to not forget, to carry the discomfort like a splinter under the skin, tiny but sharp enough to make us pause. Because history doesn't just repeat, it waits. It waits for silence, for stillness, for that small moment when someone sees cruelty and chooses to stay seated. The arena isn't just in Rome. It's in us. So next time, when the sand shifts and the crowd rises and the drums begin again, ask yourself gently, will you look away? So now you know, what you watched wasn't a show. It wasn't glory. It wasn't sport. It was survival ritualized, suffering repackaged, death sold with a seat and a snack. The Colosseum, so grand in stone, so revered in textbooks, was never about justice. It was a machine. One that fed fear and hunger and spectacle into the mouths of 1,000 cheering citizens. It turned humans into symbols, pain into pacing, screams into applause. And it worked. Rome kept its peace, not with mercy, but with blood. Not with bread alone, but with distraction, with lions and swords and fire and silence. The worst part, it didn't end in that arena. It kept living in jokes told the next morning in the shrug of a spectator, in the decision to sit and stay and smile. What the Colosseum built wasn't just an empire of stone. It built a habit of watching, of accepting, of forgetting. And as you breathe now, maybe lying in the dark, you realize you weren't just there to see history. You were there to feel it, to carry it, and maybe to do something with it. You thought this was about Rome, about gladiators, emperors, sand and stone, but it isn't. It's about you, because history doesn't just sit in books or echo in ruins. It lingers in habits, in the way we watch, in the way we listen, in the way we choose not to move. The Colosseum may be silent now, but the instinct it fed isn't gone. It lives in what we consume, what we laugh at, what we let pass. The crowd in your time may not wear togas, but they scroll, they clap, they cheer, and they forget. You carry Rome in your pocket, in your feed, in your breath, when you witness cruelty and wonder if it's your place to say something. It always is, because silence is the oldest instrument in history's toolkit. It builds arenas, it greases blades, it fills benches. But the truth, it only takes one person to break it. To stand, to turn away, to remember. History isn't done with you. And you're not done with it. It's quiet now. The crowd is gone, the gates are shut, the blood has dried, the dust has settled. You're not there anymore. You're here, safe. In a room that doesn't echo with screams, in a time where the only heartbeat you hear is your own, in a place where the walls don't watch you back. You've carried this story far enough tonight. So let it go. Let the drums fade. Let the sand drift from your memory like a breeze through curtains. Let the voices soften into static. Take a deep breath, slower this time. Let it fill your ribs. Hold it Now let it go. You don't need to carry the weight of every name. Just the lesson that watching matters, that silence speaks, that you even still have a choice. You're lying down now, maybe, or tucked in a quiet corner, wrapped in something soft, breathing a little deeper than before. You made it through Rome. Now it's time to come home. Close your eyes. Let the stone benches dissolve. Let the roar of the crowd fade to wind. Let the weight of yesterday sink gently into the ground beneath you. You're not in the Colosseum anymore. You're not watching pain. You're not holding your breath. You're not trying to decide what kind of person you are. You already know. You made it through. You listened. You stayed. And now, you can rest. The story is over. The gates are closed. There is nothing left to prove, nothing left to witness, nothing more asked of you tonight. Just sleep. Let the world dim. Let your limbs grow heavy. Let your thoughts drift like petals over still water. Let your body become quiet again. You're safe. You're quiet. You're breathing. And in this moment, soft, warm, unobserved, you are not a spectator. You are simply here. And finally, you can close the gate. Good night.